Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on today's show. Democrats release Jeffrey Epstein's birthday letter, and it doesn't look good for Donald Trump.
Plus, nominations open this morning in Labour's deputy leadership contest. Left-wingers are already accusing the leadership of the mother of all stitch-ups.
It's Tuesday, September 9th. Coming your way, the White House denies allegations that President Trump drew a picture of a naked woman for convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's birthday. The new Labour cabinet meets in Downing Street for the first time this morning as battle lines are drawn over the deputy leadership contest. Schools are to get new look report cards despite criticism from some teachers. Prince Harry talks to children at an awards ceremony about the challenges of having a big brother. And Nuno Espirito Santo is out. Nottingham Forest sacked their most successful manager since Brian Clough. Hello, good morning, everyone. Well, the Democrats have released a lurid birthday letter sent to Jeffrey Epstein that appears to be signed by Donald Trump. The White House has rejected the claims, calling the card to the convicted sex offender a fake. Now, part of the document also includes messages from the UK's ambassador to Washington, Peter Mandelson. Our US correspondent, James Matthews, reports.
This is the British angle on a scandal. Lord Mandelson, the UK ambassador, who counted Jeffrey Epstein as his best pal. These are pictures from a newly released birthday book. Mandelson was among friends who celebrated Epstein's 50th birthday with the message, "We love you." There was the picture of a tropical island, and there was the message about glorious homes he likes to share with his friends, brackets, yum yum. In May of this year, Sky News asked Lord Mandelson about Epstein and a stay in his New York flat after he'd been convicted.
My knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Why did you have an association with him? Because he was in jail at the time.
Why did many people meet him? He was a prolific networker, and I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Britain's man in Washington isn't the only name that jumps out from these files. Donald Trump's White House has again denied he had any part in this. A hand-drawn figure of a woman signed Donald beneath the waist, and the line, "A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." There are numerous contributors to these documents. It's a disturbing read, given Epstein's history. This appears to be a note from former President Bill Clinton. He speaks of Epstein's childlike curiosity and drive to make a difference. The name Trump features on an outsized cheque held by Epstein. It's signed DJ Trump. There's no suggestion either president did anything improper. But for all names in the book compiled by Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, it makes for uncomfortable reading. James Matthews, Sky News, in Washington.
The new Labour cabinet meets in Downing Street for the first time this morning as battle lines are drawn over the deputy leadership contest. Nominations open today. We're joined by our political correspondent, Tamara Cohen. Morning, Tamara. So the timeline for all of this is pretty tight. The stakes are high. What's the mood like in Labour?
That's right. So this is one of the jobs vacated by Angela Rayner. She was Deputy Prime Minister and has been replaced by David Lammy, but she was also the elected Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. Now, that position is chosen by Labour parliamentarians, and anyone who runs needs to get 20% of them. And because they have so many MPs at the moment, that means 80 names supporting them, and it's a very high bar. So we're seeing already people who'd been talked about ruling themselves out because they've realised they want to spend more time in their constituency, perhaps fearing that they haven't got the numbers. So I think the left of the party very much want to field a candidate, and already we've seen the London MP Belle Ribeiro Addy saying that she is going to throw her hat into the ring, but acknowledging that they need to get those nominations by Thursday afternoon. It's going to be tough. She said that she would be putting her ideas forward over what she called an undemocratic 3 days. One of her supporters, very left-wing MP, Richard Bergen, has said this: the leadership of the party has tried to rush the MP's nomination process through in just a couple of days, which I think makes it the mother of all stitch-ups. So who might number 10 want to run for this post?
Yes.
There's been lots of talk about the need for someone from outside London, given that Keir Starmer and David Lammy are both London MPs. There is talk of perhaps the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, a Sunderland MP, throwing her hat into the ring. Lucy Powell, who's recently been thrown out of the Cabinet, has also been suggested. And there is other people at the kind of ministerial but not Cabinet level, like Alison McGovern, who was a welfare minister. She is also a Northern MP. If there was somebody who had the leadership's backing, it would be a lot easier for them to say to all the MPs who are on the payroll, who are ministers or have some kind of job, vote for this person, then they would get 80. So I think the question is really how many candidates there end up being. Are we talking about 3 or 2 or possibly even just 1?
Yeah, there's a lot of maths that goes into how many candidates there could be. All right, Tamara, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Just a reminder that Sky News will be hosting the immigration debate in Birmingham this Wednesday, the 10th of September. It'll be hosted by Sky's Trevor Phillips and representatives of the main parties. They'll be there too. Scan the QR code, it's on the screen now, if you'd like to be in the audience and ask a question. Other news now, and parents in England will receive redesigned Ofsted report cards from November as part of changes to the way schools are inspected. Now, the reforms were initiated following a difficult period for Ofsted after the death of head teacher Ruth Perry last year. Now, Miss Perry took her own life after her Reading primary school was downgraded from outstanding to inadequate. Teaching unions have criticised the new system, saying it puts even more pressure on teachers.
We are going to have more measuring, more areas of judgment. It's going to be a 5-point scale that's going to be colour-coded like Nando's. It's going to add pressure onto schools, not reduce it. It's not going to give parents more information, and it's also going to increase the workload across the profession.
There's been an explosion on board a boat attempting to carry aid to Gaza. Organisers of the Gaza flotilla say it was struck by a drone off the coast of Tunisia. All 6 passengers and crew are safe. Tunisia's National Guard say the reports of a drone are untrue. The real-life succession battle from Rupert Murdoch's media empire has come to an end, with Rupert Murdoch's eldest son due to take control of the family's media empire. Lachlan Murdoch will take full control of Murdoch's outlets. This includes Fox News and the Wall Street Journal. While his siblings James, Elizabeth and Prudence will give up their voting rights in return for $1 billion payout. And France's outgoing Prime Minister will formally tender his resignation later today after losing a vote of confidence. President Macron must now choose his 5th Prime Minister in just 2 years. Our Europe correspondent Alistair Bunkle reports.
France's Prime Minister arrived in the National Assembly to hear a fate that he already knew. The country was glued to the latest political turmoil in Paris as François Bayrou made a final pitch to stay in office and push through economic reforms that he believes are long overdue.
Vous avez le pouvoir de renverser le gouvernement.
You have the power to overthrow the government, but you do not have the power to erase reality. Reality will remain inexorable, spending will continue to rise, and the weight of debt, already intolerable, will be heavier and more expensive.
He failed resoundingly.
Pour l'approbation 194, contre
for 194, against 364. The Prime Minister needs to deliver his resignation from government to the President of the Republic.
Well, the outcome was never in doubt. It was always a question of how big François Bayrou's defeat was going to be. The result is just in, and he's lost by a majority of 170 MPs. In the end, it wasn't even close. Emmanuel Macron is now left with no good choices. He must find a new Prime Minister, his 5th in just over 2 years, and his own future is also now in doubt.
One way to achieve stability is to have fresh assembly elections
or fresh presidential elections, and to try and break the deadlock. Would you not agree with that?
Or fresh new prime minister. It's a solution.
But it'd be the fifth in 2 years, or fifth in almost 2 years.
It could be
it hasn't
a solution
worked 5 times before.
If this new prime minister tried to work with a larger part of the parliament.
The far-right politician who could be France's next president told me that new elections are now the only way to break the deadlock.
Will you vote against François Bayrou today?
We have no confidence in Mr. Bayrou's ability to address the country's problems. We gave him his chance, but from the moment any government, no matter who is leading it, chooses to continue Emmanuel Macron's policies, despite the French having rejected those policies in the most recent European and legislative elections, then confidence is simply not possible.
François Bayrou will hand in his resignation but temporarily remain in office whilst Macron tries to find his replacement. He will want to move fast. Strikes and protests are planned for the coming weeks, and France's economic crisis will only worsen. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News in Paris.
Nepal has lifted a ban on social media after the deaths of at least 19 people during protests against the ban in the country's capital just yesterday. Let's go live now to Neville Lazarus, who joins us from Delhi. Neville, just bring viewers up to date on what they need to know on this story. Morning.
Morning. Yes, this ban has been revoked. The Home Minister of the country resigned. There's an investigation being launched into the unprecedented violence that took place yesterday, killing 19 and injuring 300, some with some very serious injuries because of live fire from by the police and also tear gas, water cannons and batons used against these protesters who were marching down, thousands of them, against corruption, and also a ban on social media platforms, the 26 social media platforms, some of the biggest names, YouTube, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, etc. Now, the government had said that they wanted these companies to register and pay taxes. They also were supported by a ruling by the Supreme Court on this matter, but the protesters say that this is a means of censorship. They want to control content of any sort of criticism of the government. Also, a lot of these platforms are used by small and medium scale businesses to trade and will have a detrimental effect on the economy, on their businesses, on their livelihood. There's a lot of suspicion amongst people because a number of legislative acts are in the pipeline which are very authoritarian, restrictive and intrusive, which could be brought in by this government, and therefore we saw these large protests and this unprecedented sort of violence against them, which were played. These scenes were played in when the Maoist revolution happened against the monarchy, and a republic was born in 2018 2008 in Nepal, and we've seen curfew being imposed now. It happened last night, and unrestricted curfew being imposed early since morning, since 8:30 in the morning, across most parts of the capital and in many other cities in Nepal. But there have been some pockets of protests taking place across the capital city as well. But for the moment, it just seems to be much calmer and quieter than what happened yesterday. But it is a precarious situation as the government has backed down. But the protesters say that they will carry on their protest against corruption in the country and also want some sort of justice for those who died, and many of them were young people in Kathmandu that marched against the government and against the security forces yesterday.
Neville, thank you. Prince Harry has spoken to children at an awards ceremony about the challenges of having a big brother. He was at the World Child Awards in London last night, which celebrates the achievements of seriously ill Children, I'm joined by our correspondent this morning, Emma Birchley. So he's in London, he's at this awards ceremony, and he's speaking quite openly about the troubles he has with his big brother.
Yeah, so he flew in from the US yesterday morning, lots of charity engagements, and this one, he's a patron of Well Child, he has been for 17 years. There's the awards ceremony and all the bits that are planned. He says that the seriously ill children are a beacon of hope and inspiration, and he also meets behind the scenes some of the children, and that's when this conversation is overheard. So he talks to one of the teenagers about his relationship with his brother. He says, "Do you get on?" And he said, "Oh, yes, we do." And Harry says, you know what, siblings. Clearly, a little hint there that things aren't so good still with William, and I think there will be a lot of people wondering whether, while he's over here this time, he does actually meet up with any of his family. Now, the signs aren't good so far. So yesterday he went to Windsor. It was 3 years since Queen Elizabeth died. He laid flowers at her resting place in St George's Chapel there. Meanwhile, a matter of miles away, Prince William is also paying his own tribute by visiting a women's institute. The Queen obviously had huge ties with the WI, and there is no indication that they will actually be meeting. And then, of course, there's the relationship with his father, King Charles. The last time they met was not long after his cancer diagnosis, which was in February of last year. Now, Charles, we know, is in Scotland at the moment. There is still time. Harry's got further engagements. He's going to Nottingham today for some children in need, donation for a project there.
From his private account, no debt. You know, I heard that it was from his private donation for children in need. Which
OK. Yeah, and then tomorrow, another thing that's close to him, he's going to Imperial College London for the Centre for Blast Injury Studies. So various charity engagements, so there's still time, but nothing official that we know of.
OK, if you hear anything, will you let me know?
Yeah, OK.
All right, thank you, Emma. And at 9:30, we'll speak to 14-year-old Alicia Palkira, who won the Well Child Award last night, attended by Prince Harry. How amazing is that? Look forward to that. Let's take a look at today's weather, though, because the weather will turn more unsettled this week as a new area of low pressure moves in. Temperatures are trending downward, and the nights are becoming distinctly chilly in rural spots. There'll be a largely dry start for the UK mainland with early sunshine. Ireland, West Wales and the southwest will be more cloudy with outbreaks of showery rain and a freezing breeze. Now, the wet weather will make little eastward progress through the morning, but showers will develop over southern counties. And for the rest of the country, fair weather cloud will bubble up, but the emphasis will be on dry conditions. Temperatures will reach 20 to 21 Celsius in the brighter spots, the late teens Celsius elsewhere, and there'll be little change through the afternoon, but showers will tend to die away towards the evening, and the showery rain over Ireland and the southwest will sweep eastwards overnight with more persistent rain following into the west, and winds will become strong with gales likely around Irish sea coasts and hills. Still to come on The Breakfast Show. We're heading for a short break, but when we return, the British horse racing industry is set to strike to protest proposals to raise betting tax.
It's the country's #1 issue right now. Many are alarmed about their changing communities.
It's an invasion, isn't it?
I think that solution comes through dialogue, not ranting off.
We don't know who they are. I don't think that there's an issue.
But are the people who matter listening? We'll bring key leaders together to debate the crisis that's dividing the nation. The immigration debate on Sky News. Get the full story first.
I'm Helen Ann Smith. I'm Sky's Asia correspondent, and I'm based here in Beijing.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did. He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. Sky News, the full story first.
I'm Martin Brunt and I'm Sky's crime correspondent.
I'm David Blevins and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Welcome back. Now, the horse racing industry is set to go on strike tomorrow to protest against government plans to raise the betting tax on racing. The British Horse Racing Authority warns the tax could cost the sport £66 million annually and over 2,700 jobs. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris reports.
For a government losing ground, a chancellor with little room to manoeuvre, the races have become a budget battleground. The sport raising the stakes over a proposed rise on betting taxes by going on strike, calling off Wednesday's entire day of races.
There to be no racing for a day is a big deal. It's like taking a Jenga block out of the pile and not expecting it to fall down. I mean, inevitably, if you take out the base, the rest crumbles.
The British Horse Racing Authority claims more than 2,500 jobs are at risk in the first year alone if the government pursues plans to harmonise tax on gambling online into a single rate. It would see the 15% tax paid by bookmakers on racing rise to the 21% paid by online casinos and games.
This is an existential threat for the sport. Our modelling, which has been done independently, tells us that over 5 years, the impact, the revenue impact into the sport would be circa £330 million.
Why should horse racing be a special case?
Racecourses are often the focal point of local towns and communities across the country, as are the training facilities.
The Betting and Gaming Council has warned the strike will cause unnecessary disruption to punters. But the reality of the racing industry is felt by those up at dawn every day.
It is unprecedented, racing choosing to shut down for a day in protest. But it's believed it's the only way to pressure government to show how important their industry is and how costly and damaging the tax rise could be.
So when the 4 courses or races were scheduled fall silent, jockeys, trainers and bosses will instead converge on Westminster to warn of the risks to racing if Rachel Reeves gambles with their futures to balance the books. Rob Harris, Sky News, Windsor.
OK, let's take a look through the papers for you this morning. We'll start with the Financial Times. It says the new Home Secretary has warned foreign counterparts that UK visas held by their citizens could be revoked if their governments don't accept the returns of illegal migrants. And it's the same story for the front page of the Times too. There you go. Now, the Mirror, don't be fooled by Farage Clown Act, the Mirror says, as the Chancellor lifts the lid on Reform's economic plans. The Labour left are plotting revenge on Starmer as the party races to find a deputy leader who can challenge the Prime Minister. This is all according to the newspaper. Meanwhile, The Guardian has an exclusive investigation into leaked files it's got hold of from when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister. Both The Guardian and Sky News have approached Mr Johnson for comment, but we haven't heard back yet. Now, 4 in 5 hospitals are failing. This is according to the Daily Telegraph as the Health Secretary prepares to release performance league tables. And the Express reveals the shocking toll of 500,000 sick days at tax offices and how much it's costing the economy. And then the Mail, just 7 miles apart, but there's still a schism between the warring brothers. The Mail has the story of Prince Harry returning to the UK and the possibility of the brothers ending their feud. And how about the Metro? Well, they're reporting on a £135 million cocaine ship bust and say it's just the tip of the iceberg. So a really mixed bag from the papers there. And don't forget to join me and Tamara for our news review, delving into today's big stories. That's coming up for you at 6:45. Still to come on The Breakfast Show for you. Do stay with us. We'll have reaction from France to the fresh political crisis with the Prime Minister set to resign after losing a vote of no confidence. And then, could Scotland maintain their unbeaten start in World Cup qualifying as they face Belarus in an empty stadium in Hungary?
I'm Helen Ann Smith. I'm Sky's Asia correspondent, and I'm based here in Beijing.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionately. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Thank you. Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing. It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Martha Kellner, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Los Angeles. Sky News, the full story first.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Welcome back to The Breakfast Show. A quick reminder of our top stories this morning. And US politicians have published a book of birthday messages sent to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, including a lewd note allegedly sent by Donald Trump. Sir Keir Starmer is due to host his new cabinet in Downing Street for the first time this morning as the race to replace Angela Rayner as deputy party leader gets underway. Parents in England will receive redesigned Ofsted report cards from November. It's all part of changes to the way schools are inspected. Now, the reforms were initiated following the death of head teacher Ruth Perry last year. Prince Harry has delivered a speech at the 20th anniversary of the World Child Awards in London. The Duke of Sussex has returned to the UK for a number of public engagements this week. At least 6 people were killed in a shooting in Jerusalem yesterday, with at least 12 others injured. Well, let's take a look at the details. 2 Palestinian gunmen opened fire on people, according to Israeli officials. It happened at a major intersection in the north of the city, where police say the attackers were shot dead. And footage from the scene shows people fleeing a bus stop at the intersection during the busy morning rush hour. Our Middle East correspondent, Adam Parsons, reports from Jerusalem.
Rush hour in Jerusalem, and the bus on the right is suddenly attacked. You can hear the shots from 2 gunmen. Passengers flee, some of them falling. A bullet hits the coach next to this car, but this man survives and takes cover. And then we see armed Israelis arriving, and within moments, the gunmen have both been shot dead. But alongside them, victims of the attack, dead, wounded, traumatised.
Suddenly, I see the terrorist along with another person. They started shooting with guns. They were shooting and shooting and shooting. And then he came to my direction. He tried to shoot me. I jumped into the bus inside. I crawled inside and hid behind a bench.
The Prime Minister was quickly at the scene, meeting emergency responders and vowing not to be dissuaded from his hardline policies in Gaza and the West Bank.
These murders, these terror attacks on all sides, in all fronts, do not weaken us. They make us more determined to complete the missions that we have undertaken.
At the same time, Israeli police were flooding the town of Katana, believed to be the home of the attackers. Among those arrested was the father of one of the suspects. Israel's hardline minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, has already said he wants all family members to be deported. Ben-Gvir was also on the scene of this attack. He's likely to use it to renew calls for Israel to annex Gaza and most of the West Bank.
Well, the debris from this attack is now being cleared up. It's not the first time that people have been shot at a bus stop, but this has the potential to reverberate, because Israel at the moment is such a divided, tense society, particularly around the question of its relationship with the Palestinians. And the response to this attack could shape Israel's policy for years to come.
This is a Jewish area. Among those who came here, we found differing responses.
I think that, like we can't go into Arab villages, the Arabs are not supposed to get into us. Any Arab. Arabs are not allowed to walk in here, never. And even if they want to come into work, even if they want to come up the hill, they're not allowed to stay in Israel, because Arabs are always going to want to kill Jews.
We need to learn how to figure out how to end this conflict, how to live here together in peace, because that's the only way we're gonna end up not having terrible attacks like this.
Jerusalem is rarely the stage for this sort of attack, and that means they reverberate more when they happen here. In Israel, every action brings a reaction. A response to this is inevitable. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
France's outgoing Prime Minister will formally tender his resignation later after losing a vote of no confidence, which he called himself. François Bayrou was ousted by French MPs over proposed spending cuts. Well, let's speak more on this with French journalist Anne-Elisabeth Moutet. Great to have you with us once again. So President Bayrou is on his way out. At the same time, the country is grappling with a debt crisis. Just outline how serious a moment this is for France.
This is a serious moment because François Bayrou was the fourth prime minister in 2 years after Emmanuel Macron called a snap election. He was supposed to be a safe pair of hands. He is older than either Macron or most of his cabinet. He has been in French politics for almost 50 years, and still he wasn't able to sort of carry through the notion that the country really is suffering under a debt that is close to 115 of GDP, that we cannot afford a pay-as-you-go pension system, which was created when 8 people at work were paying for the pension of 1 person, and now you have almost fewer than 2 to pay for that. Most of the debt of France, over 40%, is, and spending of the budget is spent on pensions and social benefits, and we are going to go the way of Greece. I won't say Italy any longer, because Italy has got wiser policies. So on the one hand, the Prime Minister was making a very good case. On the other, he was not making it in a very enthusiastic way. And there's also a feeling, as in most Western countries, that the real concerns of citizens have not been considered enough by a government of young technocrats living in a bubble in Paris. So the situation is a combination of a number of things.
Talk to us a bit more about the debt crisis, particularly for people watching here in the UK. Are we talking about higher taxes, fewer services, and how does this show up for ordinary families in everyday life?
If we look at the state of the French welfare system that was created like the British one in 1945-46, we have fewer services, the cost is higher, and the quality of those services are not quite as good as they were, mostly because there's too much to pay for. So the French have got much more than the British, a tradition of the all-benevolent state. It was really true for many years, and there is a feeling, and that's always a dangerous feeling. People do not consider, for instance, the progress of medicine, which means that few people die of cancers, fewer people die of other things, and the longevity has gone up. But at the same time, there's a feeling that what we counted on, which was a system that worked, is no longer the case. You have entire areas of France, especially in the countryside, where it's very difficult to get an appointment with a doctor, where you have to drive 100 kilometers in order to get treatment. And all of this is something that has been deeply resented. We have the same problem as Britain in terms of feeling that the arrival of people from poor countries mean there's too many people using the same services, and there's a feeling that there's no understanding in Paris of those things. And in terms of the debt, yes, we are talking about lots of more taxes, but France is already the OECD country that taxes the most both businesses and citizens, so it's much more difficult to make this accepted, especially when the feeling is that we're not getting enough for our taxes.
It's really interesting you outline all of that, because while this is going on, you know, France, along with other NATO allies, have promised funding for Ukraine, security guarantees if and when there may be a ceasefire and a peace deal. But with so much strain at home, Anne-Elisabeth, where is the money going to come from, do you think?
Well, first of all, France, again, like Britain, we're very similar, is a member of the Security Council. We're both nuclear powers. We both have an army that has deployment capacity worldwide, and that is not supposed to change. And it's, you know, we are not talking about something that you can say, well, I'm not giving so much for this hospital, I'm going to give for this one. We're talking about something entirely different. We're also talking about an export capacity in both countries, in that we produce most of the weapons that we use, and therefore it's a bit different because we're also talking about jobs. But the idea that we can sort of decide that, well, we are sort of, you know, we're checking out from the most important armed conflict, war on the continent of Europe, for those reasons, I would imagine, and you've got about half the country, or a little over half the country, still thinking it, that this is not what we should be saving on, because if the border of Russia moves from the border of eastern Ukraine to western Ukraine, it is moving to NATO.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Really interesting to get your take. Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, journalist in France. OK, time now to get your latest sport.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
The club made a great pitch to me, that they wanted me. They gave me a 4-year contract. All the stops were out. They made me feel really welcome.
We arrived at the airport there in Madrid, and there were 30, 40, 50 journalists, cameras, and we thought, oh, they come for this movie star, you know? Suddenly we see, Jesus Christ, Jimmy, it's for you.
It's always difficult losing a great player. Jimmy, for me, was always a world-class striker. Probably not talked about as much, I don't think, as to some of the other great strikers, but I was fortunate enough to play with him.
We obviously made a very good profit on him. If you just take the business transaction, not the football emotion, the transaction was a good deal because we bought him for 2 and we sold him for £12 million.
In 2 years, got 6 times their money. I was not a big earner at the time at the club. So for them, it was a big gain.
He's settling into his new surrounds, the player renamed Judas Floyd Money in the Bank when he was drummed out of Ellen Road. But stories of excessive demands were fictional, according to Atletico's new signing.
I was supposed to stay there. I was supposed to sign a new contract and feel happy. If they can ask 12 million for a player, the rest is all clear.
Were you asking to be the most highly paid player in the Premiership, as we're led to believe?
No, don't believe the figures at all. Don't believe the figures at all.
You didn't want £40,000 a week? Would have been nice, but is that what you were demanding?
That's not what I asked.
Reading the text last night, that was nothing about money from his agent. Well, Jesus, lads, honestly, if that wasn't about money, I don't know, then maybe I'm getting it wrong when he set me there. A lot of you have written good articles about it. And all I'd like to say is that I've seen quotes of 45,000. I think you're being modest to Jimmy on that one, honestly. I wouldn't like to say, but I think you'd be disappointed if you're only saying that, honestly.
Did you feel you had to speak out publicly for the club?
Yes, you have, because we didn't want to sell a top player. I had one of the best number 9s that you could wish to have. It puts me under pressure then. I've got to go out and buy and put your head on the block to buy a number 9. Did we sell a bad player? No, we sold the top player.
It did disappoint me. How everything went, it made me look bad in front of the fans. Was not necessary. The perception that people have of me, the difficult person, blah, 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 that is never there. I would have tried to find a solution.
What we didn't do is say he was a difficult character. I think we alluded to his desire for more money, or other people can put words around what you attribute to people who are just desperate for cash, and we couldn't afford it given we'd found him in the first place. Maybe naive on my part to believe that players wouldn't have the head turned for cash. So yeah, it was difficult, and I understand why Jimmy would think that we publicly probably let him down, but you've got to manage, and frankly I felt let down as well. We'd just signed him, and I'd offered him 100% pay increase, but he wanted a 300% pay increase, and I couldn't afford it.
That was for me the fuel. That kept me going, that somebody didn't want me, and I now had in the back of my mind, I'm going to show you what you're missing.
His form has been nothing short of sensational, fueling...
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Well, there is still so much to come on The Breakfast Show. Do stay with us. When we return, we'll be discussing the stories making news today with Tamara.
I'm Helen Ann Smith. I'm Sky's Asia correspondent, and I'm based here in Beijing.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionately. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. Sky News, the full story first.
I'm Martin Brunt and I'm Sky's crime correspondent.
I'm David Blevins and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky's security and defence editor.
Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
There's like 6.
Welcome back. Our news review very shortly, but first, just a quick teaser of what's coming up in the show later on with Wilfred Frost. So at 7:15, he'll be speaking to the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, as a contest with the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. That was really heating up, so it's great to have Wes in. At 7:45, we'll speak to the British Thor, Rod Egley, who became the first person to swim 1,000 miles around Iceland yesterday. Puts us to shame here on The Breakfast Show. And then at 9:30, we'll be speaking to 14-year-old Alicia Palikira, who won the World Child Award last night, and it was all attended by Prince Harry, wasn't it? So a great lineup to come. Do stay with us. Before all of that, we're going to look through the papers with Tamara Cohen, our political correspondent here at Sky News. Very good morning, Tamara.
Morning, Leah.
Let's kick off, shall we, with the front page of the Eye. Labour lefty plot that's going on, they're reporting, to revenge Starmer. Tell us a bit about this story.
That's right, yes. They're saying that they're plotting revenge on Keir Starmer. This is the hotting up deputy leadership contest to replace Angela Rayner as the deputy leader, but it's a very odd one because they've already got a deputy prime minister, so that won't be their job. So we've got the left of the party wanting to field their own candidate, but it's a high bar. They need to get 80 supporters in Parliament, so it is likely that someone who has got the anointing of number 10 will do well to get those signatures. So we're looking at who that might be. There's a Housing Minister, Alison McGovern. The Eye says she is believed to be number 10's preferred candidate. You've also got Louise Haigh, who has actually ruled herself out, though she of the multiple phones, and so has Jess Phillips, who might otherwise have been a popular candidate. So this could, although the nominations have to be in by Thursday night, the winner will not be announced for another 6 weeks, so this could well turn into quite a referendum on Keir Starmer's leadership, dominate the party's conference, and whoever that person is, depending on how loyal they are to number 10, they could also be a bit of a problem as well.
And there was lots of conversation, wasn't there, about the fact that it has to, from some sections of the party, be out of London, be a woman, so be northern. So does Emily Thornberry and her postcode completely rule her out?
Well, it's interesting that you've got Keir Starmer and his new deputy PM, David Lammy, both London MPs. So you had the likes of Andy Burnham, Mayor of Manchester, saying...
Who's on the show later.
From the north, and we'll talk to him later. The left candidate, Bel Ribeiro Addy, is also a London MP, and so is Emily Thornberry. So the left have united around somebody who is also a London MP. So they've decided that being in the north is a very important thing, rather than perhaps your politics. But that would suggest perhaps... So Alison McGovern is a northern MP, so is the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. Could it be someone like that? Also, Lucy Powell, another Manchester MP. I think we'll see who... The first rule of politics is counting. So whoever can get that... Whoever thinks they can get 80, because it's embarrassing to run and maybe only get 20, whoever thinks they can get 80 will put their hat in the ring, so we'll see how many people that ends up being.
I find it so fascinating, because why it's important for viewers at home is it really then dictates the direction of the Labour Party, potentially.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to the Times. Sorry, I'm obsessing over that leadership contest. Deputy Leader. Workers took a fortnight off sick last year. That's like the front page of the Times, because of the number of sick days taken by British workers. Apparently that's risen to the highest level in 51 years.
But it's also doubled since the pandemic. So before the pandemic, people took, on average, a week off sick every year. You know, you get a bad flu in the winter time, a week off. Now it's 2 weeks. And this is really difficult because the government are trying to get people who are on long-term sick back to work, but you have people who are taking a lot of sick days, and of course it puts strain on businesses and strain on colleagues, but also businesses are trying to work out what's the best way to, you know, motivate people to come back after sick leave, whether that is extra sick pay, whatever. So this is a post-pandemic big issue.
Interesting, isn't it? Let's move on. Is it still the Times? Are we still on the Times? It's
still on the Times.
A visa threat to states not taking back migrants. So this is a big issue, isn't it, currently, immigration?
So, yes, we've got our new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, and she said that one of the things she's going to do is, if countries don't want to take back their citizens, then there will be a kind of retaliation that they won't get visas to come to the UK. Now, the nationalities that are mentioned in this article, India, Pakistan, Nigerians, they will face visa restrictions if their countries refuse or delay efforts to take back illegal migrants. But the reason I picked this out, which is it's widely reported in all the papers, is the Times say immigration experts said this was likely to antagonise countries that Britain relies on for trade and economic growth. So India, who've just done a trade deal with, which UK officials say is one of the countries that tends to refuse to take back its citizens who have overstayed on their visas. And the Migration Observatory, who study these trends, say you can very well imagine they would take a dim view of bargaining tactics that involve these kinds of threats, especially India, who we have a long relationship with. So will this work, or is it all going to end up in international politics?
Yeah, immigration experts saying actually all of this could potentially antagonise countries that are involved in this this thing. Let's move on to the Daily Telegraph. And we're moving away from politics, and maybe it's the politics around revealing Banksy. It's a story that could finally unmask the artist. This is all after, many people may have seen this yesterday, a new artwork depicting a judge, as you can see, attacking a protester on the floor. Well, the Metropolitan Police, they're saying they're investigating the graffiti, and
so
they
people
say
think it's Palestine Action
ban.
He doesn't actually use their name or anything like that, but it's sort of widely considered to be the representing the Palestine Action ban, which he opposes, and the group which is organised protests in support of Palestine Action claims it is that, and so now the suggestion is that it could, if this ends up in court, Banksy, after 25 years being anonymous, could have to reveal his, or I guess her name. So, yes, I mean, there's been so many times, I think, over the last few years where I think we've said Banksy may be unveiled.
Also,
unmasked,
I was wondering with this story how much CCTV footage is around the Royal Courts of Justice where it was sprayed on the wall
Yes,
there.
I think they might be quite a lot.
They might have evidence that they can use. Right, we're going to go to the Sun. Double page spread. Prince Harry, he's in the UK at the moment for various charity events, and also his brother has not been too far away.
So near yet so far apart. It was the 3rd anniversary of the late Queen's death. Prince Harry is in the UK, and he went to pay his respects at St George's Chapel in Windsor. Meanwhile, his estranged brother is 15 minutes away with his wife, the Princess of Wales, talking to the Women's Institute, of which the Queen was a member. They spoke to the Women's Institute. They then had a tea party with them. Meanwhile, Prince Harry left and went to speak to the Well Child charity, where he joked about having difficult siblings. So it's like this kind of south of England running around avoiding each other because these two brothers do not seem to be remotely interested in healing their
Prince Harry
feud.
has spoken about, hasn't he, very recently with an interview with the BBC, talking about how he would really like to get back round the table with his family for the feud that's there to work through.
Of perhaps even meeting his father, the King, on this trip, but I think the feud between the brothers sounds much more entrenched.
Yeah, the King, of course, in Scotland at the moment. We shall see what happens with that. I don't know if we can squeeze in one more story. How long do we have left? 40 seconds. The Great North Run. There was a medal. There was a run on Sunday. 60,000 people took part in the 13.1-mile run.
Something odd was on the medal.
But it was. If you look closely, it didn't have the correct river on the medal.
Mislabelled map of Sunderland and the River Wear.
But it was checked by over 300 people before it went to be made, and it was one participant the day after who said, hang on a second, this isn't correct.
I think they would have picked that one up, but yes, a bit embarrassing for the Great North Run, who have admitted that they have messed it up.
We have run out of time. See you at 7.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city, where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford, and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Hames, Sky's security and defence editor. Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. On today's show, Democrats released Jeffrey Epstein's birthday letter, and it doesn't look good for Donald Trump.
Plus, nominations open this morning in Labour's deputy leadership contest, and left-wingers are already accusing the leadership of the mother of all stitch-ups.
What does it take to swim around Iceland? The country, not the supermarket. Stay tuned to find out.
It's Tuesday, the 9th of September. Your headlines. The White House denies allegations that President Trump drew a picture of a naked woman for convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's birthday. The new Labour cabinet meets in Downing Street for the first time this morning as battle lines are drawn over the deputy leadership contest. Schools are to get new-look report cards despite criticism from some teachers. And Prince Harry talks to children at an awards ceremony about the challenges of having a big brother. Very good morning to you. The Democrats have released a lewd birthday letter sent to Jeffrey Epstein that appears to be signed by Donald Trump. The White House has rejected the claims, calling the card to the convicted sex offender a fake. Part of the document also included messages from the UK's ambassador to Washington, Peter Mandelson. Our US correspondent, James Matthews, has this report.
This is the British angle on a scandal. Lord Mandelson, the UK ambassador, who counted Jeffrey Epstein as his best pal. These are pictures from a newly released birthday book. Mandelson was among friends who celebrated Epstein's 50th birthday with the message, "We love you." There was the picture of a tropical island, and there was the message about glorious homes he likes to share with his friends, brackets, yum yum. In May of this year, Sky News asked Lord Mandelson about Epstein and to stay in his New York flat after he'd been convicted.
My knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Why did you have an association with him? Because he was in jail at the time.
Why did many people meet him? He was a prolific networker, and I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Britain's man in Washington isn't the only name that jumps out from these files. Donald Trump's White House has again denied he had any part in this. A hand-drawn figure of a woman signed Donald beneath the waist, and the line, "A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." There are numerous contributors to these documents. It's a disturbing read, given Epstein's history. This appears to be a note from former President Bill Clinton. He speaks of Epstein's childlike curiosity and drive to make a difference. The name Trump features on an outsized check held by Epstein. It's signed DJ Trump. There's no suggestion either president did anything improper. But for all names in the book compiled by Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, it makes for uncomfortable reading. James Matthews, Sky News, in Washington.
Now, the new Labour cabinet meets in Downing Street for the first time this morning as battle lines are drawn over the deputy leadership contest. Nominations open today, and Tamara's here to break us all down for us. Tamara, firstly, just the sort of mood music in the new cabinet. It's a big reset, meant to be all positive. Is it likely that will carry through to those cabinet ministers overall?
I think we'll see all the excited new cabinet ministers who have changed departments or are new in their jobs filing into Downing Street today. Of course, the coming weeks and months will tell whether they're able to deliver where in the first year in office, I think, insiders would concede Labour have not really managed to deliver on what they wanted to. The post of deputy leader is an interesting one. It was one of the jobs vacated by Angela Rayner, but the job of deputy prime minister has already been filled by David Lammy, who is not running to be deputy leader. So there's a question about what this person is going to end up doing. And I think the contest is going to be one that Number 10 will be hoping they can have some control over. This is how it's going to work. So nominations open today. Tomorrow, we'll see a first round of hustings with the contenders making their pitches to MPs. The deadline to cast nominations is 5 p.m. Thursday, so it's not very far off. And a candidate needs the support of 80 of their colleagues in Parliament to get on the ballot. And then they have until the conference on September the 27th to get the second bit, which is local parties and unions. And then it all ends at the end of October. So once we have the candidates, it'll all drag on for quite a long time.
And it's end of October is a vote of who?
Is going to be the the ballot opens of Labour members, yes, once people have hit that bar. Now, the left of the party are concerned that they're about themselves having a say, and one leading figure on the left is Richard Bergen, and he says the leadership of the party has tried to rush the MP's nomination process through in just a couple of days, which I think makes it the mother of all stitch-ups. Now, the candidate he's likely to be backing is Bel Ribeiro Addy, the first person to confirm that they're running. Now, she is a South London MP. She's very much on the left of the party. I think she will struggle to get 80 colleagues to support her. So I think we're looking at who the candidates might be that do have a wider backing. There is suggestion that number 10 might support someone like the Housing Minister, Alison McGovern, who is a Northern MP. It's a bit of contrast to Keir Starmer and David Lammy, who are both London. There is talk about the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, who is a Sunderland MP. If number 10 say to all the MPs who have kind of government jobs, who are ministers or on the payroll in some way, this is our person, then they are very likely to get over 80. So I think the question now is how many people actually hit that first bar, which is very high. Is it just 2? Is it just 1? You've got figures like Emily Thornberry, who are also mulling a run. She would be not antagonistic to the leadership, but perfectly happy to criticise the direction lightly.
When we raise this question, is it a stitch-up or not? I guess we'll know on Thursday if only one candidate has made it onto the ballot. That would unequivocally, I think, be a stitch-up. If there is at least 2 and they come from different wings of the party and then there is a battle to come, then it's, I guess, a harder accusation to make. And when we say that you need 80 MPs to nominate you to start it, that's based on a percentage of the MPs they've got, which is a lot of MPs, yes, and that hasn't changed, that percentage.
Well, this was all in the new rules in 2021 because under, they changed the rules for electing the leader and deputy leader because of perceived problems with the election of Jeremy Corbyn without the support of very many of his colleagues. So this is a high bar, and it's a particularly high bar because Labour have a landslide majority. So I think if only one candidate emerged, it could be a sign that all of the other people who wanted to throw their hats in the ring simply couldn't command the support of enough of their colleagues. So it could well be that bar is too high simply because Labour have so many people in Parliament.
But as a percentage, it's not that high.
It's 20%.
20%, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, one would think that's in most sort of contests in life, it's a sort of reasonable bar.
So the left will no doubt say it is a stitch-up if their candidate... I think their candidate, Bel Ribeiro, will struggle to get 80, especially if someone else who is kind of leaning left also decides to run. So I think we're at the point now where people, of course, the first rule in politics is learning how to count, so people will have to see whether they think they're realistically going to get there. I think we're already seeing some of the people who are tipped for it, Louise Haigh, for example, saying, I think I just want to be a backbencher. Some of these people are canvassing their colleagues at the moment. There's a lot of intense conversations going on. Am I going to make it? Am I going to embarrass myself? And then the people who think that they can go the distance. But I think what will be really interesting is which is the minister or senior person who's lost the leadership, who number 10 sort of would want to have the job. And then, of course, what the job is, because they're not going to be the Deputy Prime Minister. So are they going to be a full-time campaigner? So exactly how that works, as this hasn't been the case for a very long time, that it's been done separately from the leadership and when Labour are already in government.
The learning how to count, James Cleverly probably wishes he remembered that lesson.
When he was running for leadership.
When he was running for leadership. We'll be talking to Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, shortly about all of this, and also to Andy Burnham at 8:05 as well, so well worth staying tuned for that. By the way, also worth mentioning that we'll be hosting the immigration debate in Birmingham. It's coming up this Wednesday, 10th of September. It's going to be hosted by Sky's Trevor Phillips, and representatives of the main parties will attend. Scan the QR code on your screen now if you'd like to be in the audience to ask a live question. That's the immigration debate this Wednesday. Right, time for all of the day's other stories now. Leah's got those for us.
Thank you, Wilfred. There's been an explosion on board a boat attempting to carry aid to Gaza. Organisers say the Gaza flotilla say it was struck by a drone off the coast of Tunisia. All 6 passengers and crew are safe. Tunisia's National Guard say the reports of a drone are untrue. France's Prime Minister will hand in his government's resignation to President Macron today after a last-minute attempt to save his failed job. The country's National Assembly ousted Francois Bayrou with an overwhelming 364 to 194 in a confidence vote yesterday afternoon. And the result was expected. The PM had received huge backlash to his proposed budget, which aimed to curb France's public spending. Elsewhere, Nepal has lifted a ban on social media platforms, including Facebook and YouTube, after protests that led to 19 people being killed. At least 150 people were injured as protesters clashed with the police outside parliament buildings in Kathmandu. Now, the government say the ban was in place because social media companies failed to register their companies officially in the country. And the real-life succession battle for Rupert Murdoch's media empire has come to an end. The 94-year-old's eldest son, Lachlan, will take full control of the company, which owns Fox News and the Wall Street Journal and The Times. His siblings, James, Elizabeth and Prudence, will give up their voting rights in return for a $1 billion payout. Our parents in England will receive redesigned Ofsted report cards from November as part of changes to the way schools are inspected. And James joined us now on this, and this was all sparked, wasn't it, from the death of Ruth Parry, who basically her school was rated outstanding, it was downgraded, wasn't it, to inadequate, and it sparked a huge debate around this.
Absolutely, and these changes have come around as a result, direct result of those calls from the sector, because the pressures that school leaders and head teachers feel during the inspection process was highlighted during that tragic death. And obviously it's been a very turbulent time since then for Ofsted to have to think about what's the best way forward in terms of how can we ensure that there's a rigorous inspection process for schools, but at the same time not put undue pressure and workload on school leaders and schools up and down the country. And what we've seen in this new changed framework that's being rolled out from November is that the parent voice and parental engagement has been really, really increased. And Sir Martin Oliver was very keen to make sure that parental engagement, parental perspective was factored in. And what we've seen, though, from the sector is that they feel as though they haven't been listened to in the same way. And we've seen some backlash from unions and various bodies in the education sector who are saying, actually, we'd really like Bridget Phillipson to intervene here and delay the rollout because it's supposed to be in November, when they feel it's far too soon. And they don't agree with the changes that have been made with regards to the one-word judgments being scrapped and being replaced with 2 words. So they feel as though the tweaks that have been made are not really the kind of changes that they really wanted to see, where they wanted an overhaul of how schools were inspected and supported during that process.
And Jem, thank you. We're going to be speaking, aren't we, a bit later on, 7:45, to Julia Waters, Ruth's sister.
Jim, thank you. Now, the horse racing industry is set to go on strike tomorrow to protest against government proposals to raise the betting tax on racing. The British Horse Racing Authority warns the tax could cost the sport £66 million annually and over 2,700 jobs. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris has this report.
For a government losing ground, a chancellor with little room to manoeuvre, the races have become a budget battleground. The sport raising the stakes over a proposed rise on betting taxes by going on strike, calling off Wednesday's entire day of races.
There to be no racing for a day, it's a big deal. It's like taking a Jenga block out of the pile and not expecting it to fall down. I mean, inevitably, if you take out the base, the rest crumbles.
The British Horse Racing Authority claims more than 2,500 jobs are at risk in the first year alone if the government pursues plans to harmonise tax on gambling online into a single rate. It would see the 15% tax paid by bookmakers on racing rise to the 21% paid by online casinos and games.
This is an existential threat for the sport. Our modelling, which has been done independently, tells us that over 5 years, the revenue impact into the sport would be circa £330 million.
Why should horse racing be a special case?
Racecourses are often the focal point of local towns and communities across the country, as are the training facilities.
The Betting and Gaming Council has warned the strike will cause unnecessary disruption to punters. But the reality of the racing industry is felt by those up at dawn every day.
It is unprecedented, racing choosing to shut down for a day in protest. But it's believed it's the only way to pressure government to show how important their industry is and how costly and damaging the tax rise could be.
So when the four courses or races were scheduled fall silent, jockeys, trainers and bosses will instead converge on Westminster to warn of the risks to racing if Rachel Reeves gambles with their futures to balance the books. Rob Harris, Sky News, Windsor.
Prince Harry has spoken to children at an awards ceremony about the challenges of having a big brother. He was at the Well Child Awards in London last night, which celebrates the achievements of seriously ill children. Well, Emma's here with more on this, and this little comment that came out about brotherhood.
Yeah, so Prince Harry flew over yesterday for all these charity engagements. Well Child, a really important charity for him. He's been patron for 17 years. And it was when he was chatting to some of these inspirational young people that there was this little quip. He asked a teenager about the relationship he had with his younger brother and said, "Does he drive you mad?" The young man said no, but Harry responded with a little quip, "You know what, siblings," which really gives us a hint at the continuing friction between the pair.
Well, I mean, that type of comment any person with siblings could make.
They most certainly could.
I mentioned, you can think of that almost on a daily basis. But I just kind of find it all very, very heartbreaking, this it continues in such a divided way for so long, and particularly when they know what it's like to not have a family member around, how they can't sort of repair things. And I just, every single time it comes up, I find it heartbreaking. Yeah, and certainly Harry recently hinted that he would be open to reconciliation. But yesterday he went to St George's Chapel at Windsor. He laid some flowers at the resting place of his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, while at the same time, a few miles away, Prince William is meeting with members of the Women's Institute. The Queen clearly strong connections with the WI. There is nothing that we know about in the diary for the pair of them to meet. And then, of course, there's the relationship with their father. So King Charles is at Balmoral in Scotland at the moment. It may be that he is going to fly back to London. There is still time for there to be a meeting. There are further charitable engagements. So we know that Harry is going to be making a sizable donation to children in need. That's today in Nottingham. Tomorrow he's going to the Centre for Blast Injury Studies here in the capital. So still time. But certainly the hint was that Harry, at least, was up for reconciliation. Yeah, it's also really good to see him back doing stuff. I mean, again, there's always all sorts of criticism and questions about it, but he's very good at it. And those pictures with him, with the kids in particular, he's so at ease doing that sort of thing. And actually, he said that this event, this awards ceremony, he described it as the highlight of his year. So I think that really is an indication of you know, the strong link, the strong bond he has with this charity that he's been patron of for 17 years. Emma, great stuff. Thanks so much for that. Let's have a quick look at the front pages this morning before we speak to the government. Just 7 miles apart. It's that story that we were just talking about with Emma, talking about the distance between Harry and William, 7 miles, a closer distance than the emotional separation between them. And 4 and 5 hospitals are failing, according to the Daily Telegraph, as the Health Secretary prepares to release performance league tables. It's that story that we're going to pick up on first of all now with the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who seamlessly switched in for Emma there. Very good morning to you, Health Secretary. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Tell us about how these new league tables are going to arise for NHS trusts.
So today we're publishing a set of league tables that use a whole range of data points to rank NHS providers, looking at the sorts of data that we often discuss on this programme, on things like ambulance response times or waiting times for planned treatment, right through to some of the data points that the public would not necessarily have so much access to, things like the NHS staff survey results or what the Care Quality Commission's data shows. And together we look at those factors, the financial leadership and performance, and we've ranked those hospital trusts. And the reason we're doing this is firstly to make sure that patients are better informed, and are better able to exercise choice, but also so that consistent with the approach I've taken since I became Health Secretary last year, making sure that we have honesty, transparency and honesty about the variation in performance. I know there are some people that would rather we took the ostrich attitude, buried our head in the sand, or the spare the blushes approach of not setting out these data points. But I genuinely think that the public deserve to be well informed. And if we're not honest about the challenge and the range of challenges, then we're not going to be able to fix them.
What happens if you're in the top category? Do you get bonuses?
Well, yeah, we're looking...
What happens if you're in the lowest category?
Yes, we're looking at things like capital incentives to incentivise high performance. And then in the lowest...
That's pay?
Those would be things like investment in those trusts to invest in things like new technology equipment or bricks and mortar. And then for the poorest performing trusts, there'll be a range of approaches. Where you've got poor performing leaders in poor performing trusts, then they will not receive their pay uplifts, and so there'll be effectively a financial sanction. Where we've sent some of our best performing leaders into the worst performing trusts, which is what we want to do, we're obviously not going to penalise the very people we've sent in to help us sort out some intractable problems. So there's some complexity that sits beneath this, but I do think that this is the right approach. I've seen criticism from some of the think tanks this morning saying, oh, well, is this necessarily helpful? What do the public really care about? I just think this is elitist nonsense, actually. The very same people who are out saying this are precisely the researchers who have access to these data sets and data points, who do understand the variation in performance and think it's, all right for them to understand it as researchers in London, but it's not, it's not OK to share that information with the public.
And obviously you've published these rankings this morning. I mean, if you look at a handful of the very top performing trusts and a handful of the very worst, is it very simple to say we can learn the lessons of what these guys are doing well and apply it to here? Or is there just a lot of local nuance to those that are struggling to perform?
I think a bit of both. So certainly if you take Northumbria, which is pretty much top of the table, Moorfields Eye Hospital is top of the table as a specialist hospital. Northumbria is the top performing non-specialist hospital. One of the things that makes them exceptional is they've integrated their accident emergency services with local community services to help patients get the right care in the right place at the right time. And in doing so, they've protected the elective activity, all the planned care, the operations people are booked in for, so that emergency care doesn't come at the expense of planned care. They're so well performing, that's why I nicked one of their former chief executives to come and run the whole NHS, Jim Mackey. So we will be taking the best of the NHS to the rest. Now, of course, there are some parts of the country where they have been consistently bottom of the table, and you have to look at issues of geography, demography. So there is that level of complexity, and as a government, we will take that kind of thoughtful approach. Most NHS leaders, most NHS staff and patients will welcome this approach. I have to say, in the last year, I've not found that I've been battling NHS managers. Actually, a lot of them share this government's determination, vast majority of them share this government's determination to get the NHS back to where it always should have been.
Sounds very interesting. I look forward to hearing what the results are in time. What's your message today to newly qualified doctors, the most junior doctors who are considering strike action?
Well, firstly, I absolutely agree with them about the challenge of doctor unemployment, and we're determined to deal with that challenge. We've got a new workforce plan in development. I recognise the problem they're up against, and against that backdrop, I mean, I must say it's similar to the wider dispute we've had with resident doctors on pay and conditions. I'd say, look, you've got a government that fundamentally agrees with the problem and wants to work with you to solve it. Strike should always be the last resort. Industrial action should always be the last resort if you've got an intransigent employer or an intransigent government that isn't prepared to listen and work with you to sort the problem out. That's not the case here. So I think we've got the message, and I think it's totally legitimate of doctors to send us the message in the way that they have through this indicative result. But there's no need for strike action. In fact, going back to our previous conversation about NHS performance, strikes only sets back, makes things worse for patients, and it provides harder conditions for doctors and other NHS staff to work in.
I saw a story in the Times today about the number of sick days taken by British workers is at the highest level for 15 years. As a nation, do we need to toughen up a little bit?
I think this is a really serious challenge, and I think the health of the nation and the health of the economy are inextricably linked. And part of my job as the Health Secretary is to get people back to health, because in many of those cases, people will also be going back to work. There are all sorts of other challenges. We see rising levels of mental ill health and mental illness being a reason for people being off work. Now, there'll often be good reasons if people are in crisis not to go to work that day. But what we're also finding is that lots of people who are out of work because of their mental ill health end up becoming trapped outside of work, which ironically reinforces mental ill health and makes it worse. And that's why we've been looking at some of the best practice at hospitals like the Maudsley in South London, who've done a brilliant job of combining mental health recovery and treatment with employment support to help people, coach people, support people back to work. That's the kind of approach, the effective approach we want to take. And I'll be working very closely with Pat McFadden as the new Work and Pensions Secretary to tackle this problem of ill health and the health of our nation impacting on the health of our economy.
Let's touch on the deputy leadership race in your party. Obviously, some people coming out to say it's a stitch-up because of the timeline. Do you accept that if there aren't at least 2 candidates come Friday morning, that it will have been a stitch-up?
I think there will be 2 candidates, at least by the end of the week. I think we've got some fantastic people putting themselves forward. There is a tight timeline. There always is a tight timeline when a vacancy occurs when we are in government. And with respect to all of my colleagues and putting themselves forward and Labour Party members who will be voting, it is not the most important thing going on in the country today, and it won't be the most important thing going on in the country in the coming months. And we are the party of government now. That's got to be our first focus, our first priority, tackling the big issues that people want us to and elected us to tackle, whether that's the cost of living and the pain people are feeling in their pockets, the state of the NHS, or insecurity at our borders and on our streets. Those are our priorities. And the deputy leadership contest, while important for the Labour Party, mustn't and won't distract the Labour government from the important work that people sent us here to do.
So do you think that there's no need, therefore, for there to be a candidate who is also a government minister?
I don't think that's a precondition. I don't think they need to be. And I think there are. I look at some of the names that are currently circulating and people who are dipping their toes in the water and testing support among colleagues. We've got some brilliant ministers who are thinking of going for it, and then we've got some brilliant backbenchers who are thinking of going for it. I think the important thing is who's going to be our campaigner-in-chief? Who's going to be the person that helps us win those elections in Scotland, Wales and across England next May? Who's going to help broaden the appeal of the government? Those are the essential qualities for a deputy leader.
Who's your favourite pick?
I'm keeping my powder dry at the moment. I think there is a range of good candidates. I want to see the stall they set out before I decide who I'm supporting.
Final question. There's been another release of documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein's coming from Democrats in Congress, and some of them have included letters that appear to have been sent to Jeffrey Epstein by Peter Mandelson. Is it a problem that he's continued to be linked to Jeffrey Epstein whilst having such an important role?
Well, I think our ambassador has made it very clear that he deeply regrets ever having been introduced to Epstein, and frankly, given what we all now know about the way he conducted himself and the sort of appalling testimony we've heard from Epstein's victims who would want to be associated with him, frankly.
So it doesn't lead to a change in ambassador or any consideration of that?
No, I don't think we should regard everyone as guilty by association. I think that the important thing is Epstein's victims receive the justice now and the platform now to tell their stories, to receive the hearing and the justice that comes from transparency and being now able to speak out in a way that sadly they weren't able to do while Epstein was alive. And it's really important that victims are believed, that they're given the space to set out their experiences, and that the justice that was not applied to Epstein in life can at least tarnish his name in death.
Wes Treating, thanks for joining us this morning. Good to see you. We're going to take a break here on The Breakfast Show, where when we come back, the British Thor will speak to Ross Edgley, the first person to swim 1,000 miles around Iceland.
It's the country's #1 issue right now. Many are alarmed about their changing communities.
It's an invasion, isn't it?
I think that solution comes through dialogue, not ranting off.
We don't know who they are. I don't think that there's an issue.
But are the people who matter listening? We'll bring key leaders together to debate the crisis that's dividing the nation. The immigration debate on Sky News. Get the full story first.
App gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live. Joins us live all in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland. Catholics and Protestants now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19, religion's nothing.
Sky News, the full story first.
Welcome back to The Breakfast Show. Well, coming up, we'll be speaking to the British extreme athlete Ross Edgley, who's become the first person to swim 1,000 miles around Iceland. First, reminder of all of the day's top stories.
Thank you, Wilfred. US politicians have published a book of birthday messages sent to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, including a lewd note allegedly sent by Donald Trump. Sir Keir Starmer is due to host his new cabinet in Downing Street for the first time this morning as the race to replace Angela Rayner as Deputy Party Leader gets underway. Health Secretary Wes Streeting told this programme that the new Deputy Leader didn't have to be a Cabinet Minister, but should be the Labour Party's Campaigner-in-Chief. Parents in England will receive redesigned Ofsted report cards from November as part of changes to the way schools are inspected. The reforms were brought about after the death of head teacher Ruth Perry last year. France's outgoing Prime Minister, will formally tender his resignation later after losing a vote of confidence, which he called himself. Francois Bayrou was ousted by French MPs over proposed spending cuts. And Prince Harry has delivered a speech at the 20th anniversary of the World Child Awards in London. The Duke of Sussex has returned to the UK for a number of public engagements this week.
Right, let's talk again about the deputy leadership contest, which, of course, is ongoing in the Labour Party, with nominations needing to be in by Thursday. Here's what the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, told us about that race moments ago.
At least by the end of the week. I think we've got some fantastic people putting themselves forward. There is a tight timeline. There always is a tight timeline when a vacancy occurs when we are in government. And with respect to all of my colleagues and putting themselves forward, and Labour Party members who will be voting, it is not the most important thing going on in the country today, and it won't be the most important thing going on in the country in the coming months. And we are the party of government now. That's got to be our first focus, our first priority, tackling the big issues that people want us to and elected us to tackle, whether that's the cost of living and the pain people are feeling in their pockets, the state of the NHS, or insecurity at our borders and on our streets. Those are our priorities, and the deputy leadership contest, while important for the Labour Party, mustn't and won't distract the Labour government from the important work that people sent us here to do.
So do you think that there's no need, therefore, for there to be a candidate who is also a government minister?
I don't think that's a precondition. I don't think they need to be. And I think there are. I look at some of the names that are currently circulating and people who are dipping their toes in the water and testing support among colleagues. We've got some brilliant ministers who are thinking of going for it, and then we've got some brilliant backbenchers who are thinking of going for it. I think the important thing is who's going to be our campaigner-in-chief? Who's going to be the person that helps us win those elections in Scotland, Wales and across England next May? Who's going to help broaden the appeal of the government? Those are the essential qualities for a deputy leader.
Who's your favourite pick?
I'm keeping my powder dry at the moment. I think there is a range of good candidates. I want to see the stall they set out before I decide who I'm supporting.
Yeah, really interesting, is it? Keeping his powder dry, Wes Streeting there.
That little smile, I thought he was going to reveal it for a moment.
No, well, I did. I was on tender hooks. But it is so interesting, isn't it, what he was saying about landing that message for Labour and that reset from Keir Starmer, reset number 2 for the party as a whole, and whether this, deputy leader contest and the person that's ultimately picked will be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a convenient argument, of course, for him to say the focus is on delivering on the government in case either people say it's a stitch-up because one of their candidates gets it very easily, or if it's someone that's going to be a thorn in Starmer's side, they can use that argument to say this is a distraction, we're focused on the government, which, by the way, we get a big focus on today because it's, of course, the first new cabinet meeting, and Tamara's made her way to Downing Street for all of those arrivals. I am interested in seeing the tone. I mean, obviously everyone's going to turn up and walk down very smiling, happy. Tomorrow shout questions, they won't respond. But, some have left the cabinet, but either way, others in there have gone up and down. And, Darren Jones is a big winner. Shabana Mahmood is a big winner. No doubt a spring in their step as they arrive. David Lammy, bit of a demotion, gone to justice, got this title of deputy PM. Does it really count? Others that people thought were for the chop. And have lost my pen there.
We'll get that later.
We'll get it later, and have remained. No, Bridget Phillipson's a really interesting one.
That's a really interesting
Education
one,
Secretary is now being rumoured to be runner for deputy leader. So, if she did get it, you'd think she's very well protected.
Well, either way, Westminster loves elections, and this is going to be a tight one. But the ultimate decision won't be announced for another
party conference, 6
weeks.
So we'll get probably down to 2, I would imagine, this week. I doubt it'll be down to 3. Right, let's move on and talk about the more complicated political situation in France, where the Prime Minister will formally tender his resignation later today after losing a vote of confidence yesterday. President Macron must now choose his 5th Prime Minister in just 2 years. Our Europe correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, has this report.
France's Prime Minister arrived in the National Assembly to hear a fate that he already knew. The country was glued to the latest political turmoil in Paris as Francois Bayrou made a final pitch to stay in office and push through economic reforms that he believes are long overdue.
Vous avez le pouvoir de renverser le gouvernement.
You have the power to overthrow the government, but you do not have the power to erase reality. Reality will remain inexorable, spending will continue to rise, and the weight of debt, already intolerable, will be heavier and more expensive.
He failed resoundingly.
Pour l'approbation, 194, contre...
For 194, against 364. The Prime Minister needs to deliver his resignation from government to the President of the Republic.
Well, the outcome was never in doubt. It was always a question of how big Francois Bayrou's defeat was going to be. The result is just in, and he's lost by a majority of 170 MPs. In the end, it wasn't even close. Emmanuel Macron is now left with no good choices. He must find a new Prime Minister, his fifth in just over 2 years, and his own future is also now in doubt.
One way to achieve stability is to have fresh assembly elections or fresh presidential elections, and to try and break the deadlock. Would you not agree with that?
Or fresh new Prime Minister. It's a solution.
Would it be the fifth in 2 years? Or fifth in almost 2 years? I mean, it hasn't worked 5 times before.
If this new Prime Minister tried to work with a larger part of the Parliament.
The far-right politician who could be France's next president told me that new elections are now the only way to break the deadlock.
Will you vote against Francois Bayrou today? Confiance dans Monsieur Bayrou pour...
We have no confidence in Mr. Bayrou's ability to address the country's problems. We gave him his chance, but from the moment any government, no matter who is leading it, chooses to continue Emmanuel Macron's policies, despite the French having rejected those policies in the most recent European and legislative elections, then confidence is simply not possible.
Francois Bayrou will hand in his resignation but temporarily remain in office whilst Macron tries to find his replacement. He will want to move fast. Strikes and protests are planned for the coming weeks, and France's economic crisis will only worsen. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News in Paris.
Now, he's no stranger to audacious expeditions, and now the man labelled as the British Thor has completed his latest challenge, a record-breaking 1,000-mile swim around Iceland.
Yeah, Ross Egley from Cheshire spent 4 months experiencing towering waves, freezing temperatures. You can just about see him there in that last pic. Inquisitive local wildlife while circumnavigating the Nordic island. He officially crossed the finish line in Reykjavik yesterday.
We're delighted to say he joins us now. Ross, very good morning to you. Enormous congratulations. I mean, tell us the feeling as you finished them. What unbelievable joy, but also, I imagine, relief.
Absolutely, yeah. This was a long time coming as well, battling Arctic storms, jellyfish, and yeah, it felt so good just to stand on firm land, have a Viking beer as well. They delivered that out of a horn and did a Viking ceremony to welcome me in as well. It's been amazing. A strange way to spend the summer, but an amazing one as well.
Yeah, a really good way to spend the summer. But Ross, what on earth made you do it?
I asked myself the same question so many times when I was going around. I think records are nice, and obviously to be the first person to do that, that's great. But really, the whole thing, we all teamed up with some scientists as well. They said, look, if you have someone crazy enough to try to swim around, that allows us this really unique opportunity to actually track eDNA samples, so environmental DNA samples that basically look at what's been in the water. Is it a Greenland shark? Is it seals? Is it a basking shark? So what we're left with is this map of biodiversity around the entire coast of Iceland in a level of detail we've never quite seen before. So the swim of the record was nice, but the ocean conservation and the message behind it was far much more, sort of powerful and important.
I know you chose the summer period of time to do it, but no doubt it was still unbelievably... What sort of temperatures was the water?
Yeah, it gets really strange, because going around, we crossed over the Arctic Circle, went over the top, and obviously that's cold. You get the wind and the waves coming from the Arctic, but it's actually swimming past the frozen glaciers and the rivers that are frozen. So when they start melting, it's 2-3 degrees. It's just above freezing. So it was really weird. The East Coast actually got a lot colder because of these huge frozen rivers that were just melting and coming into my swimming pool for the day. So yeah, battling hypothermia and jellyfish were probably the two biggest enemies of this swim.
And Ross, tell us about some of the wildlife that you came face to face with on this swim. Anything really quite terrifying?
Do you know, I'm so glad you asked, because I think a lot of people were saying, was it going to be orcas? Are you scared? Are you worried? Many orcas came over. It was really interesting. They kind of came over, looked at me, and they were like, you're not a seal. You're too small to be a whale. What are you? And they just kind of, we went on our way. But the best, hands down, the best whole experience, Siglaflorida, so over the top of Iceland, locals said, look, we need help. There are 30 pilot whales that have been beached. This never happens. And then by hand, we had to pull by rope. We got all 30 pilot whales back out to sea. Not one of them died. And there was just, like I said, 50 people from all around, the world. A lot of people didn't speak English, didn't speak Icelandic, but we all just had this common goal, and we managed to get them out there. So the swim was amazing, but the stories along the way as well were just incredible.
Ross, thanks so much for joining us. Much appreciated. Congrats again.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Good to have him on there. We'll maybe speak to him about his next challenge when we find out about it. But we have some breaking news to bring you. We mentioned her name just moments ago when we were discussing about the Labour deputy leadership for the party race. And Bridget Phillipson has just announced that she is running for deputy leader of the Labour Party. She's saying she's promising to unite the party and deliver for working people. She says, I'm putting myself forward for the deputy leadership of the Labour Party to unite our great party and deliver for working people. I'm a proud working class woman from the northeast. I've come from a single parent family on a tough council street all the way to the cabinet, determined to deliver better life chances for young people growing up in our country. It's a longish statement, and she does conclude by saying, with me as deputy leader, we will beat them across the country and unite to deliver the opportunity that working people across this great country deserve. Referring a bit above to Farage and Reform and other opponents that Labour Party faces. So Bridget Phillipson has put herself forward to be the deputy leader of the Labour Party. We'll have more on that with Tamara from Downing Street in a moment. But we'll take a quick break here on The Breakfast Show. When we come back, we'll be talking about the new school inspection system.
I'm Helen Ann Smith. I'm Sky's Asia correspondent, and I'm based here in Beijing.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
The founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. Sky News, the full story first.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Hames, Sky's security and defence editor.
Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Welcome back. Ofsted will bring in a raft of changes to the way it inspects schools this November, including additional monitoring focusing on the quality of education and the care schools provide. However, the reforms have been called an overcomplicated mishmash by Professor Julia Waters, the sister of Ruth Perry, who took her own life following an Ofsted inspection which ranked her school as inadequate. Well, pleased to say we're joined by Professor Julia Waters now. Julia, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us on Breakfast. Julia, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great to have you with us. Morning to you. I just wonder if we start with Ruth, because you would have seen her unravelling during the time that Ofsted were inspecting her school and the emotional toll that it took. What was she going through?
She felt responsible for what had happened to her school. She felt a sense of intense shame. She was absolutely terrified that she might lose her job. She was terrified that she couldn't show her face in the local community. And she felt completely trapped. She knew, her staff knew, her governors knew, the local authority knew that that judgment was unfair, was disproportionate, but there was no way, there still is no way for her to challenge that. And this is really what I'm worried about with the new system that's being proposed, that those life-threatening risks identified in the inquest into my sister's death are still very, very much present.
Because the new ranking, you think, is too similar to the previous system?
Yes, the new ranking is pretty much the same, isn't it? Let's get a thesaurus out and change the words, stick back in the satisfactory judgment, but call it expected standard. And to add insult to injury, put colour coding in it, which draws attention to any perceived failings. There's also, and this is for Bridget Phillipson to address rather than Ofsted strictly, there are also very much high stakes consequences of a poor judgment. Head teachers will still fear that they might lose their job, and they have no redress.
Do you still need to have some level of ranking in order for people to know the good practices and the less good practices and schools to improve their standards over time?
The parliamentary inquiry into Ofsted's work with schools, a very rigorous cross-party inquiry into Ofsted's work with schools, recommended that the government investigate, look into other school accountability systems in high-performing countries that do not put the kind of level of absolutely intolerable pressure, literally intolerable pressure on school leaders and teachers. And Ofsted and the government have chosen to ignore that advice and to plough ahead with what is really just cosmetic changes to the existing system that has been proven to pose a threat to life. They have not taken the warnings of the coroner at my sister's inquest seriously. They have not listened to Parliament. They have not listened to the vast majority of the teaching profession. And they have certainly not listened to me and my family. So whether there's a need for rankings, I don't believe there is a need for rankings. Of course, there is a need for parents to have a reliable sense of what their local school is like. I have never argued, no sensible person would argue against accountability, and inspection can play a role in that. But it has to be an accountability system that does not put the well-being and potentially lives of hardworking teachers and school leaders at risk. That is not in the interests of children and their parents.
Professor Waters, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's get quickly out to tomorrow. We've got about a minute left on the programme. On that breaking news tomorrow, the Education Secretary is running for the deputy leadership.
Yes, Bridget Phillipson has just announced she's running. She's also going to be addressing the TUC conference this afternoon. She says she's a proud working class woman. She's a Sunderland MP. She grew up in a single parent household, has risen to be Education Secretary, and she says she's the right person to take the fight to Nigel Farage. And it looks as if, as a member of the Cabinet and supporter of Keir Starmer, who survived the reshuffle, she is very, very likely to get the number of nominations that will be needed.
Great stuff. Tomorrow we'll be back out with Tamara in Downing Street for all the very latest Westminster news after this short break, and we'll also have all of the day's other top stories.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Good morning. It's 8 o'clock on today's show. Nominations open in Labour Party's deputy leadership contest, and we've got breaking news. The Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has announced that she's standing.
Plus, Democrats released Jeffrey Epstein's birthday letter, and it doesn't look good for Donald Trump.
It's Tuesday, September the 9th. Your headlines.
Keir Starmer's new cabinet will be meeting shortly, and number 10 behind me as the battle lines are drawn in the contest to be Labour's deputy leader.
Cabinet ministers will arrive.
In the last few minutes, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has announced that she's running on a ticket to unite the party. But left-wingers are already accusing the leadership of the mother of all stitch-ups. Also ahead, the White House denies allegations that President Trump drew a picture of a naked woman for convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's birthday. Schools are to get new look report cards despite criticism from some teachers. And Prince Harry talks to children at an awards ceremony about the challenges of having a big brother. Very good morning to you. The new Labour cabinet meets in Downing Street for the first time this morning as battle lines are drawn over the deputy leadership contest. Nominations opened today, and in the last hour, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson announced that she'll be running for the position, promising to unite the party. I'm joined by Tamara, who's there in Downing Street. And Tamara, it changes, I guess, the question that you can shout to the cabinet ministers as they arrive in terms of, are you going to back Bridget Phillipson? I guess the assumption is they certainly will.
That very much is the assumption. Keir Starmer's new cabinet, just appointed on Friday, will be having their first meeting today, and he will tell them that they're here because they are the right people to deliver the government's #1 mission, which is growth, and that they are all patriots working to deliver for working people. Now, one person around that cabinet table who some had expected might be let go in the reshuffle is Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, who has just announced in the last few minutes that she is going to be running to be the party's deputy leader. That's one of the jobs vacated by Angela Rayner, not Deputy Prime Minister, that's David Lammy, but this is an elected role within the Labour Party. And in order to get on the ballot by Thursday afternoon, you have to get 80 nominations from MP colleagues. That's a very high bar. Now, we know that the left of the party, critical of Keir Starmer, have fielded a candidate. That's Belle Ribeiro Addy. She's a London MP, and I think it's be quite a struggle for her to get 80 nominations. Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, is the cabinet candidate now, and she has put out a statement saying this. She says that she is a northern working class woman. She is a Sunderland MP. She believes she can unite the party and take the fight to reform. She says she's shown that she can beat Nigel Farage's party in the northeast, and she says, I'm ready for it. I've proven I can do it, and she can beat reform while staying true to the Labour Party's values, she says, of equality, fairness and social justice. Now, this suggests that if the government are supporting her to be deputy leader, that they can probably mobilise everyone who's a minister or on the government payroll and loyal MPs to support her, and she looks almost certain to be one of the candidates. I think the question now is whether there's going to be more than one candidate who can hit that bar. We know other people are considering it in the party. Emily Thornberry may be one of them, of course chairing the Foreign Affairs Committee. There are other figures in the party who are assessing their options, but she now looks like the one to beat. There's a question, of course, about what role that will now be, but the final decision after the nominations are in will be made by Labour Party members towards the end of October, so it opens the door to quite a long discussion about the direction of Keir Starmer's Labour Party and where they've gone wrong in the past year.
Tamara, great stuff as always. Thanks very much for that. Let's get a reaction now from the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, who joins me in studio. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. A good candidate, Bridget Phillipson?
There's lots of good candidates coming forward. I'm pleased to see it because there needs to be a debate, not about the government and everything it's doing, because I don't think that would be right, running commentary on the new ministerial team, and I wish them all well and here to support them. I think the debate should go in this contest towards how the Labour Party is being run, how Parliament is being run. I don't think that MPs should be treated in the way that they have been in recent times. I was in the Blair and Brown governments, and it wasn't done like that then. MPs had more ability to speak out without facing the loss of the whip and all of the other things that we've seen.
So give me you're talking specifically about this first year or so of the new Labour government.
Yeah, I think we need to listen to our MPs more and respect them more, because they have sounded the alarm over winter fuel, and they were right to do so, over disability benefits, and they were right to do so, because it's clear the party changed its position. And I just think you need that culture in a Labour government where people are able to speak out. Sometimes when you're a minister, and I've been there, you're in the department, you've got the civil servant saying everything to you. When you go over to the House of Commons for a vote, people say, you know what, I'm not sure you've got this right. And that's what you really need, because the MPs are on the ground in their constituencies. They feel these things, and they often are your best guide when you're in a government department. This kind of approach of removing the whip at the first offence and sort of ostracising people, I don't recognise it from my time in government. With the Labour Party in power, I think you need all of the Labour family involved, and particularly when we look at the country right now and the challenges that we're facing, you want everyone involved, everybody pulling together, even at times if there's discordant voices saying, you know what, think again about this.
And I mean, obviously, some people have suggested that it's important that the deputy leader is from a different region, not London, or also potentially a woman. And obviously, Bridget Phillipson would check those boxes. But does she not qualify in your eyes because she's a government minister?
Everyone has a role to play here. Everyone's got a voice in this contest. But I think it needs to be people who are going to be prepared to speak out independently about some of the challenges that I've just mentioned. I want to see this Labour government succeed. I wish the new cabinet and the ministerial team well. We're all here to help. But it's really important at this point that we get the culture inside Parliament and inside the wider party right as well, because I think there are lots of concerns amongst Labour Party members about the way that constituencies are being treated at times. It's too factional, and it needs to be more pluralistic, more inclusive.
So someone to speak out independently implies a backbencher. Who is your preferred candidate?
Well, I've mentioned Lucy Powell, who I think has got all of the experience, but there are others potentially coming forward as well. So I think we need to see what the short list looks like. Parliament is going to decide that, and the PLP. So they're closer to it than me these days. I'm in Greater Manchester. I don't kind of live it in the way that they do. So let's see what the PLP kind of says in terms of who they think should be on the short list, and then I think everyone will be able to make their choice.
But it is, I guess, implied by what you're saying, critical in your eyes that come Friday morning there is at least one backbencher facing off against the cabinet minister.
I think it's really important to have independent voices in this debate, and particularly from the north. And obviously Lucy is a strong voice from the north, always had a good degree of independence about what she does. Because if you look in the news today, and I did want to talk about this, we need people to speak up for us. And I'm a bit worried about the number of ministers from the northwest, particularly, that have left the government. We've got Reform UK this morning pledging to scrap the Liverpool-Manchester railway line that we've worked so hard to move forward. It just says to me that the leadership of Reform is like the ex-leadership of the Tory party. They're the London establishment, Mr Farage and Mr Tice. They haven't had a lifetime of using the railways in the north of England like we have, because if they had, they wouldn't be proposing a second-class railway for the north of England in perpetuity. That's what they're doing. They're proposing to bake in the north-south divide in perpetuity. We've got much higher ambitions for the north, and that's why I want to see a deputy leader for the Labour Party that will call them right out. It's actually unbelievable that they're saying this. They pose as friends of the north. They are anything but.
Obviously, Bridget Phillipson, in her statement, specifically cited Reform and Farage and beating them in her backyard. More broadly, what does the Labour government need to do more of to quell the rising poll numbers of Reform?
I would do more of what I just said to you. I don't think these people are friends of the north of England.
I don't think it's just not. It's not just the north. But it's not just the north. Is all I'm saying.
They're products
more broadly.
Yeah, and the parts of the Midlands would feel the same as I'm representing the north. That's my job. But the Midlands would feel the same. The South West and East Anglia would feel the same. You know, they are the London establishment, and the person who has written this report on rail this morning was in Number 10 when the Conservatives were in power. They're doing the things that the Conservatives did to the North, and they're just repeating it. So you call that out. They are no friends. Reform UK are no friends of the North, in my view. They have low ambitions. They want us to have a second-class railway. We won't accept it. And this is now kind of starting to flush out what they're all about. But they were the cheerleaders for privatisation and deregulation in the 1980s, these people. That's left us with high water bills, high energy bills, unaffordable rail fares. You know, that has been them through their career. And what I would say to my party is don't lean in their direction. Don't pander to what they're saying. Lean into our values. Unite people, you know, on the progressive side of politics who actually, you know, want to see that challenge being made. That's what I would like to hear from the candidates for the deputy leadership, that going forward, we'll be bolder, you know, we'll be more inclusive, and we take them head on.
What about I mean, in terms of the recent reshuffle on policy towards immigration, and the assumption is that Shabana Mahmood is going to take a much harder line on that than Yvette Cooper did. Is that a mistake? I've got huge respect for Shabana. I've worked with her over many years, and what I would say is, having done that job myself, I worked as an immigration minister in the Blair government. You've not got to go out there and sort of grandstand as the Tories did and Reform do. Just get the system working properly. It was allowed to descend into absolute chaos. I was responsible in the Blair government for making agreements about returns with other countries, doing the hard yards. That's what you've got to do. The thing that kind of worries people is when they don't see the system under control. Get it under control. And Shabana has proven herself as somebody who knows the detail, gets stuck into the detail, and I think she'll do a really good job. Is it out of control at the moment? 30,000 crossings so far this year? Well, when I looked at the dying days of the Conservative government, I actually couldn't believe what they were doing. It was like they had given up, and it did feel chaotic. And when it comes to the immigration system, to allow a sense of chaos is very dangerous. They almost created the chaos and then used it to campaign as though, you know, to make it look as though they were the ones to fix it. Well, sorry, but, you know, that's why this government has been really on the back foot, because they left a mess behind, the Conservatives. But it's about restoring order to the system. I think slowly but surely you can see those return agreements getting put in place. You can see the numbers of returns increasing. They are beginning to bring a sense of order to it. Do you regret not being able to run for the deputy leadership yourself? No, not particularly. I've got what I consider to be the best job in politics, which is Mayor of Greater Manchester. You know, we are a city region that for the last decade has been growing faster than the UK economy. You know, you go to our city now, you see it, you feel what's happening there, the energy that we have. It's brilliant to be there. And that's why, you know, it's kind of, for me, so depressing to hear the sort of Westminster establishment, Mr Farage and Mr Tice, coming along this morning saying, oh, well, you know what, we'll just pull the plug on the rail infrastructure that the North West needs. I don't think people down here really kind of believe in the North in the way that we do. It's kind of why I left this world down here. I kind of made the case for the North here. I was banging my head against a brick wall. And today's move from Reform UK shows that it's still, you know, those biases and prejudices against the North are still very much there in the way they all think. So to me, the job I've been doing kind of fulfills why I came into politics, to close the North-South divide. And because Greater Manchester is growing faster than the UK economy, that is actually now happening. We are closing the North-South divide. And then you get Reform UK popping up, kind of trying to throw all of that progress into reverse. It's depressing, but we will fight them all the way with higher ambitions for the North. Andy Burnham, good to see you this morning. Thanks for stopping by. Thank you very much. Now, the Democrats have released a lewd birthday letter sent to Jeffrey Epstein that appears to be signed by Donald Trump. The White House has rejected the claims, calling the card to convicted sex offender a fake. Part of the document also includes messages from the UK's ambassador to Washington, Peter Mandelson. Our US correspondent, James Matthews, has more.
This is the British angle on a scandal. Lord Mandelson, the UK ambassador, who counted Jeffrey Epstein as his best pal. These are pictures from a newly released birthday book. Mandelson was among friends who celebrated Epstein's 50th birthday with the message, "We love you." There was the picture of a tropical island And there was the message about glorious homes he likes to share with his friends. Brackets, yum, yum. In May of this year, Sky News asked Lord Mandelson about Epstein and to stay in his New York flat after he'd been convicted.
My knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Why did you have an association with him? Because he was in jail at the time.
Why did many people meet him? He was a prolific networker, and I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Britain's man in Washington isn't the only name that jumps out from these files. Donald Trump's White House has again denied he had any part in this. A hand-drawn figure of a woman, signed Donald beneath the waist, and the line, "A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." There are numerous contributors to these documents. It's a disturbing read, given Epstein's history. This appears to be a note from former President Bill Clinton. He speaks of Epstein's childlike curiosity and drive to make a difference. The name Trump features on an outsized cheque held by Epstein. It's signed DJ Trump. There's no suggestion either president did anything improper. But for all names in the book compiled by Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, it makes for uncomfortable reading. James Matthews, Sky News, in Washington.
And tune in at 6, because we'll bring you a live news conference at the White House where Donald Trump's Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt will be speaking 6 p.m. Time to get you up to speed there now on all the other top stories.
Thank you, Wilfred. Parents in England will receive redesigned Ofsted report cards from November. It's all part of changes to the way schools are inspected. The reforms were initiated following a difficult period for Ofsted after the death of head teacher Ruth Perry last year. Miss Perry took her own life after her Reading primary school was downgraded from outstanding to inadequate. Teaching unions have criticised the new system, saying it puts even more pressure on teachers. There's been an explosion on board a boat attempting to carry aid to Gaza. Organisers of the Gaza flotilla say it was struck by a drone off the coast of Tunisia. All 6 passengers and crew are safe. Tunisia's National Guard says the reports of a drone attack are untrue. And France's Prime Minister will hand in his resignation to Macron today after a last-minute attempt to save his failed job. The country's National Assembly ousted Francois Bayrou with an overwhelming 364 to 194 in a confidence vote yesterday afternoon. Now, this result was expected. Mr Bayrou had received huge backlash to his proposed budget, which aimed to curb France's public spending. And the real-life succession battle for Rupert Murdoch's media empire has come to an end. The 94-year-old's eldest son, Lachlan, will take full control of the company, which owns Fox News, The Wall Street Journal and The Times. Meanwhile, his siblings, James, Elizabeth and Prudence, will give up their voting rights in return for a $1 billion payout.
Now, Kevin Murdoch is expected to challenge Labour on their welfare cuts during a speech today. The Tory leader will also claim that Labour are pushing Britain closer to a bond crisis and that they need to be willing to work together in order to agree a serious plan to cut welfare spending. Let's talk about it all. Joined now by Helen Whately, the Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary. A very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. So what exactly are you, as a party, outlining today?
Well, what we're doing today is a proposal because of the serious situation that the economy is in and because the Labour government has brought the country's economy to the brink. Borrowing is up, but also borrowing costs are up at a 27-year high. Unemployment has been going up month on month. They already put taxes up, and it looks like taxes will go up again in the autumn in the budget. It's a very serious situation. It's not just economists saying that. It's also everybody I speak to, whether it's business leaders, it's literally people coming up to me in the street telling me how worried they are about the state of our economy. And one thing the government has got to do is get spending under control and start the country living within its means. And the place to start is the welfare budget. With sickness benefits going up to around $100 billion by the end of this decade, Keir Starmer has to get that under control. Now, he tried to do that before the summer recess, but he couldn't get savings past his backbenchers. In fact, he U-turned what was meant to be a savings plan, turned into spending more money. So I've been doing the work as Shadow Secretary of State on what he can do to make savings. And Kemi Badenoch has made an offer to the Prime Minister, to the Chancellor, that we will sit down with them and we will work with them on a savings plan to get welfare spending under control and to start showing that the country can reduce the amount that we spend and get the economy back on track.
I can understand a lot of that, but the framing of suggesting that Kemi Badenoch wants to, with a constructive tone, sit down to work with the government on welfare reform doesn't really fly, because you said he couldn't get welfare reform past his backbenchers. You could say he couldn't get it past Parliament, and the Conservatives could have supported his attempts and it would have got through. But you didn't.
Well, we offered to work with them back then, and they didn't take us up on our offer then. He tried to get it through past his backbenchers, and in fact, it was clear that he couldn't. And we saw that dramatic moment, and quite unprecedented, in the Chamber of Parliament, when a minister literally stood up in the middle of somebody else speaking and did a U-turn and abandoned the cuts that they were trying to achieve, the savings that they were trying to make. So what was clear is he couldn't. We've had this whole reset and the reshuffle and a new Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, but it's still the same backbenchers and no sign that they're going to want to back savings. That's why we're offering to work with them.
All of that is true, and, you know, it was a crazy day in Parliament that day, no doubt about it. But you say you offered to work with them. Obviously, you voted against them. And you could have embraced what they put in front of you. So
what we voted against was because they pulled the legislation apart, and actually it turned into, from being a $5 billion savings proposal to being a $300 million spending
2 weeks prior to that, a week prior to that, your party was very clear they weren't going to support the plan that Labour put forward. And there is a point here that is, you know, maybe you would have wanted their welfare reform to go further. Maybe you would have wanted it to change around the edges. But you're in opposition, and you did have the chance to support a bill in the general area of welfare reform that would have reduced spending, and you didn't. So all I'm saying is, today, to frame it as we're the gracious ones willing to work with the government, feels a bit rich.
So we made an offer to them. And as it happens, the plans they put forward, though they were going to save money, were not a good way of going about it. But we offered to work with them to bring down the welfare bill. As I said at the time, they didn't take us up on it. Now, one of the problems that Labour's got is they didn't make a plan when they were in opposition about what they were going to do about welfare. They came in and they did not have a plan for making savings. I've been doing the work as Shadow Secretary of State on what they should be doing, the things that they should be doing. So firstly, for instance, they should be stopping the misuse of the benefit system. Things like these claims for common mental health problems like anxiety and ADHD, that's got to stop. They've got to stop the abuse of the welfare system. They need to bring back the face-to-face assessment, stop this abuse of the Motability scheme where people are getting free cars for things like ADHD and tennis elbow. And they've got to make sure that it's the people who really need and deserve benefits who are the ones who get them, not, for instance, foreign nationals coming here to claim sickness benefits. I've set out those are some of the things that they need to do. They didn't have a plan. We do. We will work with them so that they can put some of these things into practice, get welfare spending under control, demonstrate, not least to the markets, that this government can actually make savings. That could help boost confidence in our country's economy, and that would help us achieve the growth that so badly the country needs. As I said, everybody I speak to is distraught about the state of the economy.
Just a final question on this, and we'll file this clip and we might play it back to you in weeks or months to come. But if Pat McFadden brings forward a plan that addresses even one of those 2 or 3 areas that you outlined, will you support it?
So we have said we will sit down with them and we will work out a savings plan.
It's not going to be precisely your plan.
I'm not going to say a blank sheet of paper. It's like whatever they say. But I said we will sit down with them and work out with them a plan that we can back to help them get savings past their backbenchers and through Parliament.
OK, well, in opposition, it's not your job to lead the framing of the legislation. So I doubt you'll get that privilege. But we shall see if the offer more broadly is genuine in the weeks ahead. Helen Whateley, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's have a look now at some cabinet arrivals. We mentioned there Pat McFadden. He used to be the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, the new Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, the new Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister and the head of the Cabinet Office. I think those are all his titles. Darren Jones there arriving. I think he's the first arrival for Cabinet, which is enlightening itself in terms of the new power balance within there. Looking chipper, unsurprisingly. Lots of new titles. Nice promotion. For him, the Cabinet meeting, of course, will be taking place imminently. Now, France's outgoing Prime Minister will formally tender his resignation later today after losing a vote of confidence. President Macron must now choose his 5th Prime Minister in just 2 years. Our Europe correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, has this report.
France's Prime Minister arrived in the National Assembly to hear a fate that he already knew. The country was glued to the latest political turmoil in Paris as François Bayrou made a final pitch to stay in office and push through economic reforms that he believes are long overdue.
Vous avez le pouvoir de renverser le gouvernement.
You have the power to overthrow the government, but you do not have the power to erase reality. Reality will remain inexorable, spending will continue to rise, and the weight of debt, already intolerable, will be heavier and more expensive.
He failed resoundingly.
Pour l'approbation, 194, contre...
For 194, against 364. The Prime Minister needs to deliver his resignation from government to the President of the Republic.
Well, the outcome was never in doubt. It was always a question of how big François Bayrou's defeat was going to be. The result is just in, and he's lost by a majority of 170 MPs. In the end, it wasn't even close. Emmanuel Macron is now left with no good choices. He must find a new Prime Minister, his 5th in just over 2 years, and his own future is also now in doubt.
One way to achieve stability is to have fresh assembly elections or fresh presidential elections, and to try and break the deadlock. Would you not agree with that?
Or fresh new Prime Minister. It's a solution.
Would it be the 5th in 2 years, or 5th in almost 2 years? I mean, it hasn't worked 5 times before.
If this new Prime Minister try to work with a larger part of the Parliament.
The far-right politician who could be France's next president told me that new elections are now the only way to break the deadlock.
Will you vote against François Bayrou today?
We have no confidence in Mr. Bayrou's ability to address the country's problems. We gave him his chance, but from the moment any government, no matter who is leading it, chooses to continue Emmanuel Macron's policies, despite the French having rejected those policies in the most recent European and legislative elections, then confidence is simply not possible.
François Bayrou will hand in his resignation but temporarily remain in office whilst Macron tries to find his replacement. He will want to move fast. Strikes and protests are planned for the coming weeks, and France's economic crisis will only worsen. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News in Paris.
So to come here on The Breakfast Show, we're going to look at the very latest on the war in Ukraine with the former US National Security Advisor, decorated General H.R. McMaster. That's coming up any minute now.
It's the country's #1 issue right now. Many are alarmed about their changing communities.
It's an invasion, isn't it?
I think that solution comes through dialogue, not ranting off.
We don't know who they are. I don't think that there's an issue.
But are the people who matter listening? We'll bring key leaders together to debate the crisis that's dividing the nation. The immigration debate on Sky News. Get the full story first.
gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis. Up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live.
Joins us live.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace. The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland. Catholics and Protestants now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19, religion's nothing.
Sky News, the full story first.
Welcome back to The Breakfast Show. Well, coming up in just a moment, we're going to speak to the former US National Security Advisor and decorated Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster on the latest developments in Ukraine and what President Trump can do about it, and a lot more. But first, let's just remind you of the day's top stories.
Yes, thank you, Wilfred. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has declared she is running for Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. Health Secretary Wes Streeting told this programme that the new Deputy Leader didn't have to be a Cabinet Minister, but should be the Labour Party's campaigner-in-chief. We've heard from him this morning, and Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, who wants someone who will speak out independently.
I look at some of the names that are currently circulating and people who are dipping their toes in the water and testing support among colleagues. We've got some brilliant ministers who are thinking of going for it, and then we've got some brilliant backbenchers who are thinking of going for it. I think the important thing is who's going to be our campaigner-in-chief? Who's going to be the person that helps us win those elections in Scotland, Wales and across England next May?
I think it needs to be people who are going to be prepared to speak out independently about some of the challenges that I've just mentioned. I want to see this Labour government succeed. I wish the new Cabinet and the ministerial team well. We're all here to help. But it's really important at this point that we get the culture inside Parliament and inside the wider party right as well, because I think there are lots of concerns amongst Labour Party members about the way that constituencies are being treated at times.
Well, we're joined now by our political correspondent Tamara Cohen, live from Downing Street. So the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, puts herself in the running. What does this tell us, Tamara, about the direction, potentially, of the Labour Party?
Well, I think it tells us, Leah, that number 10's preferred candidate is the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. Surprise, in a way, survivor of Keir Starmer's reshuffle of his cabinet, who will be meeting with all the new faces around the table for the first time this morning. She says that she is a northern working class woman who grew up in a single parent household. She can reach those parts of the party that perhaps Keir Starmer and David Lammy as London MPs cannot. And she says that this party, the Labour Party, is in a fight. That fight is with reform, and that she can take the fight to Nigel Farage. In her Sunderland constituency, reform have done well in recent years and came second at last year's election. So she sees that as the key threat for the Labour government and says she is the person to take it on. And it is very likely that now no other minister will run for the deputy leadership, and that if all the government ministers and loyal MPs throw their weight behind her, she's almost certain to get the 80 nominations that will be needed by Thursday afternoon. And so the question becomes, who does she face, if anyone, as a challenger in that deputy leadership contest? Other candidates we know, the only one is confirmed, is Belle Ribeiro Addy. She is a South London MP who is very much on the left of the party. She may well struggle to get 80 people to nominate her, and she said that it is undemocratic to run the contest so quickly. Some on the left see it as a bit of a stitch up. We wait to see whether people more in the centre of the party, the likes of Emily Thornberry, for example, who has been lightly critical of the Labour leadership and its direction, will throw their hats into the ring as well. You can hear that figures like Andy Burnham, who think that the leadership should be doing some things differently, want someone who could be a bit more critical. But clearly Bridget Phillipson, who is in the cabinet, is loyal to Keir Starmer, would be someone who she hopes can kind of campaign very hard and rev up Labour as they come up to the next election.
Mara, great stuff. Thank you very much for that. And we'll be back out with Tamara throughout the morning, of course, as more cabinet members do arrive there in Downing Street. Now, Ukraine was hit by the largest aerial bombardment since the start of the war over the weekend. In response, Donald Trump has threatened tougher sanctions on Russia. Now talks between the US and the European Commission are underway to discuss what those restrictions might look like. Let's talk about all of that and more with the former US security advisor to Donald Trump in his first term and the decorated war hero, General H.R. McMaster. A very good morning to you, General. Great to have you with us.
Hey, Wolf, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to start with a big picture question. And obviously, you know President Trump well. You worked with him in his first administration. What is his genuine intention as it relates to Russia and Ukraine? Is there a lot of method behind what sometimes looks like madness on this, or are you worried yourself this time round versus Trump Mark 1?
I think what he wants is good, right? He wants an end of the war on terms that that are favorable to the Ukrainians and the West. But what Putin has done, I think, is confused him about the best way to get there. What Putin does is he, of course, uses flattery. You can't go wrong there with President Trump oftentimes. But then what he'll do is he'll hold out the prospect for a really big deal on something else, like reduction of nuclear arms. He'll try to expand the issue set so he can sort of put Ukraine in a box as a country that's really not as important, or a situation that's not as important. And then what he'll do is try to create this sense of aggrievement. It really was NATO enlargement, right, that put him in a really precarious position. What he calls these root causes, which are which the root cause, of course, is his aggression against Ukraine. And then he'll sort of portray any other alternative or President Zelensky is weak. And he thinks he can win this because he thinks that the West is weak, Europe, the United States, that we're weak, that we're decadent, that we lack the resolve, we're divided. So I don't think he's going to get what he wants. Putin is going to get what he wants from President Trump. But he strings President Trump along with these kind of false promises of a big deal and this false narrative, that somehow he's the aggrieved party.
So is the implication what you're saying there that President Trump has sort of fallen for it in the short term, or do you not think that's the case?
Well, I think he has kind of fallen for it in the short term, but I don't think he has not given Putin what he wanted. Remember what Putin wanted in Alaska, right? Is he wanted President Trump to sign up for terms for a ceasefire that were unacceptable to the Ukrainians, unacceptable to European leaders, and that he would use that to drive a wedge between the United States and our European allies. And to divide the West further, because Putin's ambitions are grand here, right? He not only wants to dominate Ukraine and have just a rump, maybe Ukrainian state that he can rule over even indirectly. He wants to make the Black Sea a Russian lake. He wants to break NATO apart and then extend his influence further into Europe. Probably dominate once again, the former republics of the Soviet Union. As well as dominate the former states of the Warsaw Pact. So, he wants to restore the Russian Empire, and he won't stop until he is stopped.
What's your sort of message to European leaders, including the Prime Minister here, in terms of whether they could be doing more? I think it's fair to say that everyone has stepped up significantly here, and obviously various pledges to increase defence spending. But is there much more that could be done? And I think India is a really interesting example, because we've just done a free trade deal with India. Right. And of course, President Trump is striking tariffs on India because they're buying oil from Russia. So how do you see, as much as we look at President Trump and worry about some of the rhetoric, should there be more being done here?
Well, first of all, I would say that European leaders, including the Prime Minister, have done a really good job in engaging President Trump. President Trump, I think what he wants to achieve is actually positive. How he goes about it is problematic sometimes. And I think that he learns from these conversations. He does evolve his thinking. So the engagement has been, I think, quite effective. But in terms of what more can be done, of course, burden of responsibility sharing and defense, that's in the positive column. I think that's helping the transatlantic relationship and the transatlantic alliance. But there's much more that can be done in two areas: to sustain support for Ukraine, and then also to put more pressure on Russia at a time when Putin is actually quite vulnerable. I mean, his economy is in shambles. And I think the two main things to do are to highlight what you already have really highlighted, is what is the international system that is allowing Putin to evade more severe effects of sanctions, including India purchasing the cheap oil, but actually Europe's still buying 20% of the oil that they used to buy and energy from Russia. Reducing that dramatically, I think, would be important. Secondary sanctions on those who are really foundational to Russia being able to continue this onslaught that you mentioned at the outset against Ukraine, and China is at the forefront of that. So there are discussions, as you know, going on now between European leaders and U.S. leaders about what are the nature of some of these secondary sanctions, financial sanctions, other sanctions that can impose costs on China for really underwriting this horrible war against Ukraine.
One more question on this area, but it links to China. To what extent do you think President Trump's motivations to be otherwise more conciliatory towards Putin than perhaps the facts would suggest, it comes from him wanting to try and peel Russia away from China? Is that a genuine motivation, and is it a legitimate one, or is it wishful thinking?
It's a genuine motivation. It's legitimate, right? Because, of course, the geostrategists of the late 19th, early 20th centuries, this is Mackinder and Spikeman, from a British perspective, said, hey, it would be a terrible thing if there was a hostile power that dominated the Eurasian landmass. Britain can't stand for that. It's not good for the world. So dividing them is a positive, but they can't be divided at this moment. We saw the optics from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting, the virtual BRICS meeting that happened yesterday. They've declared their undying love for one another, Putin and Xi Jinping. I think the opportunity lies in gluing them together, because what we've been doing is pretending that we can separate them, and it allows them to cover for one another, especially for China to cover for Russian aggression. I think you can make the argument, Wilf, that China is fighting a proxy war against Europe and the West through the Russians. And the sooner we make that connection, the more effective we can be, I think, on putting the pressure on Putin sufficient for him to conclude he can't win the war at an acceptable cost and risk. And I think that's the moment when you maybe do have a chance at a ceasefire that can end the suffering of the Ukrainian people.
That's really interesting. So harder on China as part of this and harder on Russia as opposed to trying to peel each of them away from each other.
Right. Stop pretending that they're not acting in concert. And, of course, they've brought into this axis of aggressors. I mean, the photos, from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization with Kim Jong-un, and the Iranian delegation there. I mean, there are maybe 30,000 more troops coming from North Korea to fight alongside Russians.
I wanted to touch on the UK military, because last time you came on this programme, you said the UK military makes me want to cry because of your assessment of the sort of capability had slipped over the decades. It's not been that long, a year or so since we last spoke. Has that assessment changed, or are you given a little bit of hope by small increases in defence spending? But we're only talking about, increases of 0.2%, 0.3%.
Yeah, it is obviously much more positive in terms of the increase, but it takes a really long time to build back the capacity and the range of capabilities, the skill sets, once you cut your military. I mean, it's much easier to sustain a professional. This is why it made me want to cry, because the British Army still is extremely professional, extremely capable, but just not big enough. And in an all-volunteer force, it's hard to grow that capacity back. So when a decision point comes up again, maybe a couple of decades from now, after rebuilding, which will be painful, that capacity, I think that's a really important consideration. It's easy to cut it, very hard to grow it back.
In terms of the president, just coming back to him, you said he likes praise. Obviously, you've worked closely with him and had to work out what to say, when, and in order to sort of achieve your aims in those meetings. When you look at Trump Mark II, if you look at those cabinet meetings, in fact, there was also a dinner with tech leaders last week. I mean, I was there for the first term. The level of praise around the table has gone up, and it's unanimous now. Does that, I mean, as a military leader who is, forthright with your views, and I'm sure has faced forthright views back to you, does it worry you? Does it even sicken you to watch? What's your take on it?
Well, Wilf, there's a reason why I only lasted 13 months, right? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a disservice to the president to tell the president what the president wants to hear. I saw it as my job to guard President Trump's independence of judgment, to get him best analysis, to get him multiple options. Because he's the guy who got elected, right? So he should get to make the decisions. The problem is, in an environment of competitive sycophancy, what you get is you get people telling the boss what the boss wants to hear, so you can maybe mask some potential negative long-term costs and consequences of decisions. But also, many of these people who engage in this kind of sycophancy, what they don't want is to help Donald Trump with his agenda. What they want to do is manipulate decisions consistent with their agenda. And so I tried to protect against that, to put into place a process, decision-making process that got the president a broad view of perspectives, not to try to control him or manipulate his decisions, but allow him to understand fully these complex problem sets and make sound decisions.
Is that happening now? Are you worried that it's not?
I'm worried that it's not happening. It's been widely reported, and this is sort of, bureaucratic politics and everything, but it seems as if some people have convinced President Trump that his own staff was the so-called deep state, the source of bureaucratic inertia. When in fact his own staff, that's the National Security Council, National Economic Council, is really helpful to pulling together these options, presenting them for decision to the president. I think this is how one of the reasons why you've seen some of these wide swings with tariffs and other decisions.
General, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Hey, Wolf, great to be with you.
Great to see you. General H.R. McMaster there, former National Security Advisor and Lieutenant General. We are going to take a break here on The Breakfast Show. When we come back, teachers voice their concerns regarding Ofsted's redesigned report cards. We'll speak to the Chief Inspector of Ofsted, Sir Martin Oliver. That's next.
I'm Helen Ann Smith. I'm Sky's Asia correspondent, and I'm based here in Beijing.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionately. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Martha Kellner, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Los Angeles.
Sky News, the full story first.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor.
Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Parents in England will receive redesigned Ofsted report cards from November. It's all part of changes to the way schools were inspected. Teaching unions have criticised the new system, saying it puts even more pressure on teachers. Now, the reforms were initiated following a difficult period for Ofsted after the death of head teacher Ruth Perry. Ofsted Chief Inspector Sir Martin Oliver joins us in the studio today. Talk us through the changes which will come in November, and I suppose what teachers and parents and students will notice straight away.
Yeah, good morning. Well, the changes that I'm introducing are built upon the largest consultation that Ofsted's ever undertaken. Last year we heard from 20,000 people, and this year we've heard from a large consultation, and it's going to raise standards, help educational professionals in nurseries, schools and colleges raise standards for all children, particularly the most disadvantaged and vulnerable. And parents will see a new report card which will better describe the strengths and areas for improvement for a school, but it will also give them an at-a-glance summary. And parents have overwhelmingly supported me in saying this is better than the system we used before, and it will be fairer. Fairer to teachers and head teachers like me. I'm a teacher and head teacher for 30 years, had nearly 100 Ofsted inspections before I took on this job. And it will be fairer to them because it will better describe those strengths and those areas for improvement better than the blunt one-word system did previously.
But the summary is still pretty blunt, right?
No, because you've got a number of areas. So don't forget Ofsted inspects nurseries, schools and colleges. But if you take schools, for example, we look at 6 core areas and safeguarding, and we describe what's attendance and behaviour like, what's the curriculum and teaching, what subjects a child might study, and the quality of teaching like. And parents want that detailed information because it informs them, it helps them. And as leaders, I've written this very much with an idea of it being a toolkit. As a head teacher, as a teacher, there was a professional standard that I qualified at, and there were legal duties on me to carry out things, statutory responsibilities, and my framework tests all of those. So teachers and head teachers should look at it today and think, well, that's my job he's checking. Exactly.
So, Martin, we did mention, didn't we, at the top of this conversation about the difficult period that Ofsted went through. How will this new system take away that pressure? I'm a mum of two primary school kids, actually, and the teachers often tell parents at the school gates that the Ofsted inspection process is filled with so much stress and pressure. How will this system take that away?
Well, look, I can't take away all pressure from an inspection, and as a head teacher, I think accountability really matters because we are accountable for your 2 children, for over it's like 12 million children in the country going into school settings and nurseries and colleges. And that's really important that we have standards for education because you only get one chance at childhood. But it wants to be fairer. So the methodology, how we go about carrying out an inspection will be done with those teachers, with those head teachers. And I'm relying upon all of my 3 decades of experience, have nearly 100 Ofsted inspections, to think what's the best way of doing this that still will never shy away from calling out standards for children, but works to be fairer with schools. And the way I set out even the grading description is crystal clear, so everyone knows exactly what we're looking for. There's no hidden mystery to it.
You said you consulted very, very widely, particularly with parents. Did you do so as well with teachers and head teachers, and do they embrace this change or not?
Well, it's different. The reactions have been different from different groups. So teaching unions have been really finding it really challenging to work with me on this. And I've tried my best with them before I took on this role and throughout the last 20 months. I even met them yesterday and went through all of these changes. And when I describe it to them, they understand it far better. And that's the difference. Ofsted isn't just about what's written on the page. It's about the visit and how it feels. And I'm absolutely convinced that it will feel better. But early years providers, and there are 3 times as many early years children's childminders, nurseries than there are schools in the country. The system leaders running early years settings have overwhelmingly shown me support. The people who run colleges have overwhelmingly shown support. And I've been on lots of media this morning, and my phone's flooding in with messages. Head teachers of the largest groups in the country are saying this is going to be much better. So it's a mixed reaction, and it's my job now to make sure that this lands absolutely safely, but still reports on behalf of parents on the quality of education for children. And that is my job. This is the Office for Standards, and that's my role.
So, Martin, Thanks for joining us. Very much appreciated. I'll save you from asking the question of whether Bridget Phillipson will make a good deputy leader of the Labour Party, because...
well, she makes an excellent Secretary of State.
There we go. Well, thank you very much for that answer and for all of the conversation this morning, Sir Martin. Much appreciated. Let's get out to Tamara. Tamara's been watching the arrivals in Downing Street for this first reshuffled cabinet meeting, and Bridget Phillipson, one of the many whose mood you'll be looking out for.
Yes, that's right. Keir Starmer chairs his cabinet with all these new faces around it. We'll tell them the top priority is growth and they need to deliver it. But he's also, of course, got the contest for deputy leader to worry about. We've now heard this morning that a member of his cabinet, Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, slightly surprisingly stayed in her job on Friday. She is running. She says she is a northern working class woman and she can take the fight to Labour's key opponents, which he said is Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. So she says she's someone the party can unite around.
And how many are in so far? Everyone?
Just a few. We haven't really got started yet. We've seen Darren Jones, now the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, but we haven't seen some of the key new figures like Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, as yet. But Bridget Phillipson now running, and she looks like the one to beat, almost certainly to get those 80 nominations.
Tamara, great stuff. Thanks so much. It was interesting that Darren Jones was the first in, which is sort of telling about the new setup. We're going to take a very quick break here on The Breakfast Show. When we come back, we'll have all of the day's top stories, including more from Downing Street.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock on today's show. Nominations open in Labour's deputy leadership contest, and just over an hour ago, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, became the first minister to announce that she's standing.
Plus, Democrats released Jeffrey Epstein's birthday letter, and it doesn't look good for Donald Trump.
It's Tuesday, September the 9th. Your headlines.
As cabinet ministers gather in number 10 behind me, battle lines are drawn in the contest to be Labour's deputy leader.
Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson announces that she's running on a ticket to unite the party. Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham tells us the party needs someone who will speak out independently.
We need people to speak up for us, and I'm a bit worried about the number of ministers from the Northwest particularly that have left the government.
Also ahead, the White House denies allegations that President Trump drew a picture of a naked woman for convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's birthday. Schools are to get a new look report card, despite criticism from some teachers. And Prince Harry talks to children at an awards ceremony about the challenges of having a big brother. Very good morning to you. Let's get back straight out to Downing Street, where Tamara is standing by. As Tamara, we await what the first cabinet meeting of this new reshuffled era.
That's right, Keir Starmer appointed his new cabinet on Friday with some new faces and some of the same faces in different jobs. And they're all going to be meeting for the first time this morning. We've seen a couple of them file in already, most notably Darren Jones, who actually works in number 10 now as the new Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. And Keir Starmer will be saying to them that the top priority for his second year is growth. They have to deliver it. Delivery is the watchword of what he calls the second phase. I think many in number 10 would admit the first phase didn't quite go to plan, but he wants them to deliver, and he says make people feel that more of their hard-earned cash is in their pocket. He says they are patriots. Last night at an internal Labour Party meeting, he called Nigel Farage a plastic patriot. He says they are patriots, they want the best for our country, and he says that now it's up to them to deliver it.
Of course, the deputy leadership race for the party is ongoing as well. And we've been speaking this morning to the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, and the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham.
I look at some of the names that are currently circulating and people who are dipping their toes in the water and testing support among colleagues. We've got some brilliant ministers who are thinking of going for it, and then we've got some brilliant backbenchers who are thinking of going for it. I think the important thing is who's going to be our campaigner-in-chief? Who's going to be the person that helps us win those elections in Scotland, Wales and across England next May?
I think it's really important to have, independent voices in this debate, and particularly from the North. And obviously Lucy is a strong voice from the North, always had a good degree of independence about what she does. Because if you look in the news today, and I did want to talk about this, we need people to speak up for us. And I'm a bit worried about the number of ministers from the Northwest particularly that have left the government.
Lucy Powell was who he was referring to there, of course. And Tamara, Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, announced she was running in between those two interviews. So the phrasing there from Andy Burnham that he wanted someone independent was in light of knowing that Bridget Phillipson, a woman from the North, was standing, and the implication was that, of course, he didn't want it to be her. What do you make of all of that?
That's right. So Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, survivor of the reshuffle last week, some thought she might not, is going to be running as deputy leader. She is now, it would appear, the candidate that number 10 want and the one to beat. And if all the loyal MPs and people who are ministers and have jobs in the government support her, she's almost certainly going to get the 80 nominations that they will all need to get by Thursday afternoon before they go on to the latter stages where you need to get unions and local Labour parties on side before the winner is announced at the end of October. The question now, of course, is who might stand against her. We know there's going to be a candidate from the far left of the party. Belle Ribeiro Addy, a London MP, says she is going to stand. She may struggle to get the nominations. Bridget Phillipson points out that she represents Sunderland in the North East. She is a working class woman. She's grown up in a single parent household, overcome lots of barriers in politics, and she says she's the person to bring the fight to Nigel Farage to show that the Labour Party can beat reform. She sees that as their key challenge. Now, of course, she is going to be loyal to the leadership. She is from within the cabinet, and there are people like Andy Burnham, who has been critical of the Labour leadership over the last few months, who want to see what he calls an independent voice. Now, Bridget Phillipson is, of course, from the north. Andy Burnham says he wants someone who's going to be a bit more critical. Lucy Powell, who he was talking about, was sacked from the cabinet last week, reshuffled out. It's unclear whether she's going to stand. Emily Thornberry, also a London MP, but a bit critical of the leadership in some ways. She may stand as well. So I think the key question now is whether there is going to be a sort of centre of the party, but slightly more critical of Keir Starmer candidate who is not a minister, who might stand for the deputy leadership. Important to say that it's very unusual for this role to be elected separately from the election of the leader, and also at a time when Labour are already in government. That's not something that normally happens. There isn't really much of a precedent for this. So exactly how that role works and what is their job in terms of campaigning, we'll have yet to see.
I mean, it's so interesting this tomorrow, and obviously they'll all be discussing it at the cabinet meeting. If Bridget Phillipson now doesn't win, is that a big blow and embarrassment for the Prime Minister, for her as well?
Oh, massively. I mean, she will be standing to win, and she will no doubt get the support of her cabinet colleagues and loyal MPs. I think anyone standing against her will have to consider very carefully whether they are going to get the numbers. 80 is a very high bar to be achieved by Thursday afternoon. Some MPs on the far left of the party, like Richard Bergen, have said doing it this quickly is a stitch-up. I think, frankly, there are some candidates on the left of the party who would struggle to get 80 nominations, however long they were given, but it is quick, and she is now the one to beat, and who the final candidates will be voted on by Labour Party members. So the stakes are quite high, and the risk, I think, was that this could become a bit of a referendum on Keir Starmer's leadership. They will be hoping that's headed off by choosing Bridget Phillipson, who hits a number of bases in terms of her upbringing and her journey to the cabinet. But she is someone who is going to be loyal to Keir Starmer. She will go out and bat for him. That is what Number 10 want to see, and they will be trying to rally Labour MPs around her. I think we'll get a sense by this evening of whether there is going to be any serious candidates standing against Bridget Phillipson. But MPs who do not back her, will vote for her, will be sending a message to Number 10 that they want someone who is going to be critical. So that is going to be a difficult look, I think, especially for the new MPs. So whether there's going to be a contest at all, I think, really is the question now.
Tomorrow, great stuff as always. Thanks so much for that. Now, the Democrats have released a lewd birthday letter sent to Jeffrey Epstein that appears to be signed by Donald Trump. The White House has rejected the claims, calling the card to the convicted sex offender a fake. Part of the document also included messages from the UK's ambassador to Washington, Peter Mandelson. Our US correspondent James Matthews has this report.
This is the British angle on a scandal. Lord Mandelson, the UK ambassador, who counted Jeffrey Epstein as his best pal. These are pictures from a newly released birthday book. Mandelson was among friends who celebrated Epstein's 50th birthday with the message, "We love you." There was the picture of a tropical island, and there was the message about glorious homes he likes to share with his friends, brackets, yum yum. In May of this year, Sky News asked Lord Mandelson about Epstein and to stay in his New York flat after he'd been convicted.
My knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Why did you have an association with him? Because he was in jail at the time.
Why did many people meet him? He was a prolific networker, and I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Britain's man in Washington isn't the only name that jumps out from these files. Donald Trump's White House has again denied he had any part in this. A hand-drawn figure of a woman, signed Donald beneath the waist, and the line, "A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." There are numerous contributors to these documents. It's a disturbing read, given Epstein's history. This appears to be a note from former President Bill Clinton. He speaks of Epstein's childlike curiosity and drive to make a difference. The name Trump features on an outsized cheque held by Epstein. It's signed DJ Trump. There's no suggestion either president did anything improper. But for all names in the book compiled by Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, it makes for uncomfortable reading. James Matthews, Sky News in Washington.
Well, do tune in at 6 p.m. We'll bring you a live news conference at the White House where Donald Trump's press secretary Caroline Leavitt will be speaking.
Now, parents in England will receive redesigned Ofsted report cards. This is happening from November, and it's all part of changes to the way schools are inspected. Well, in the last hour, Ofsted Chief Inspector Sir Martin Oliver told us why he had made the changes, and it was a better system.
Parents will see a new report card which will better describe the strengths and areas for improvement for a school, but it will also give them an at-a-glance summary. And parents have overwhelmingly supported me in saying this is better than the system we used before, and it will be fairer. Fairer to teachers and head teachers like me. I'm a teacher and head teacher for 30 years, had nearly 100 Ofsted inspections before I took on this job. And it will be fairer to them because it will better describe those strengths and those areas for improvement better than the blunt one-word system did previously.
Well, Anjum's here to discuss this a bit more. This was all sparked, all of these changes that we'll see in November, sparked by the tragic death of head teacher Ruth Parry. After her school, she had a high rating. It was dropped down to poor, inadequate. But lots of parents today will be wondering, will these new rules, will it make it any easier for them to decipher whether their schools is good or bad? Is it an easier system to understand, essentially?
There's definitely more information available at a glance, and I think that's what Sir Martin was alluding to. There's more information for parents, and the response they've had from parents has been largely positive, because at a glance you can now see a colour-coded rating system for any school that will have this new style Ofsted under the new framework. The problem is it doesn't address the issues which have instigated the changes in the first place, and those reasons were around the stress and workload for school leaders and schools and the tragic death of Ruth Parry. And we've seen the reaction from the sector across the board, from unions and professionals in the education sphere. They've all said that this is not the kind of change that they need. It's not supportive, and they're asking Bridget Phillipson to delay the rollout, because the rollout is due to take place from this term, from November, which is very soon. So there's a real kind of division, if you like, between what parents are saying and also what the sector is asking for.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Julia Waters, Ruth's sister, wasn't quite sure about the new system, calling it a mishmash of old and new. Essentially, there still is some kind of overall rating, though?
Of course, yeah, there's still a rating system. There's still a grading and a judgment that's given to schools. And I know they said they wanted to move away from those one-word judgments like outstanding or inadequate, but they've been replaced by two words. So it seems as though they haven't really had a change. They've just had a few tweaks, and they haven't really listened to the sector, but they have listened to parents.
OK, all right, Anjum, thank you, Anjum Pibikos, with the latest there. Let's take viewers now through some of the day's other news. And there's been an explosion on board a boat attempting to carry aid to Gaza. Organisers of the Gaza flotilla say it was struck by a drone off the coast of Tunisia. All 6 passengers and crew are safe. Tunisia's National Guard say the reports of a drone are untrue. France's Prime Minister will hand in his resignation to President Macron today after a last-minute attempt to save his job failed. The country's National Assembly ousted François Bayrou with an overwhelming 364 to 194 in a confidence vote yesterday afternoon. The result was expected, and Mr Bayrou had received huge backlash to his proposed budget, which aimed to curb France's public spending. And the real-life succession battle for Rupert Murdoch's media empire is come to an end. The 94-year-old's eldest son, Lachlan, will take full control of the company, which owns Fox News, The Wall Street Journal and The Times. His siblings, James, Elizabeth and Prudence, will give up their voting rights in return for a $1 billion payout.
Now, Kathmandu International Airport is partially closed this morning due to protests. Yesterday, at least 19 people were killed in Nepal's capital during protests over a ban on social media, which the government has now rescinded. Neville Lazarus joins us now from Delhi with all the details of this story. Neville, bring our viewers up to speed.
Well, there's been these protests. Yesterday we saw the unprecedented violence there with the death of 19 people and over 300 injured, some with very severe wounds because the police resorted to live firing, water cannons, tear gas and baiting charges against them. It's again kicked off today. There was a curfew imposed since early morning at 8:30 in the capital, but defying all of that, protesters have come out. They tried to march to Parliament, which is in the restricted area, which has been bolstered by security forces, the military and police as well. So now they've turned their attention to other parts of the city where they have targeted homes, private homes of politicians in Nepal. Now, we are seeing pictures of the private home of the Prime Minister Oli has been set on fire. The President's house has been vandalized. A number of cabinet ministers, their homes, including the Home Minister, his home has been set on fire, and also others have been vandalized. Now, there are plumes of smoke seen across the horizon in Kathmandu, and protesters are burning these homes. They are burning tires on the roads and also pelting stones at security forces and police. They are pushing back, though they have not yet come anywhere close to Parliament, where we saw these pictures yesterday. But nevertheless, they are not relenting. Now they are demanding for the resignation of the Prime Minister, and also calling for general elections early. All this because they marched yesterday against corruption in the government and also against the ban of these 26 social media platforms, including YouTube, WhatsApp, Messenger, X, Snapchat, etc. And they say that they will not relent unless there is the resignation of the Prime Minister and his whole government should fall, and early elections must be called.
Neville, great stuff as always. Thanks so much, Neville Lazarus, there for us in Delhi. Still to come here on The Breakfast Show, we're going to be talking about British horse racing, which will go on strike tomorrow in protest against government plans to raise taxes on betting.
It's the country's #1 issue right now. Many are alarmed about their changing communities.
It's an invasion, isn't it?
I think that solution comes through dialogue, not ranting off.
We don't know who they are. I don't think that there's an issue.
But are the people who matter listening? We'll bring key leaders together to debate the crisis that's dividing the nation. The immigration debate on Sky News. Get the full story first.